Sneb looks like he just read an interesting tweet and or YouTube comment.
I just got an email that said I won 2 free large pizzas. I'm jazzed right now. Let's go.
Nice, dude. Let's go, actually. That's an auspicious moment. That's a good start to the show. Right?
Well, now hang on a second. The question is, which pizza was it, right? Because that could be good or bad.
It's 2 large pizzas. My choice of toppings. It's like a local chain called 2 for 1 family.
No.
Yeah,
don't say it. People
will
about
to dox himself.
No, it's not.
Dude.
It's not that local. It's spread. There's like 20 stores.
You don't understand. 20 stores is enough to find you. People will do it. They're motivated.
Yeah, Brazil will find you, dude.
People are convinced that you are literally the demon king of the Guild Wars 2 community, and like they're motivated to take you out. It's not good.
Oh dear.
And that is a fantastic introduction to the actual overall topic here that we'll go into now. There's the segue. Welcome to TeaTime, my friends. We've got a very interesting topic sparked by a little bit of recent video making by one of our guests here. A new member of the show, Mighty Micah, has arrived to join us and talk about a few issues surrounding the Guild Wars 2 community and the way a lot of conversations go, content creation and so on. And of course, alongside him, it's myself, okay, I don't even know how to describe Brazil, okay, Preston, the chaotic demon of the scene, floating around hither and thither, memeing people as hard as possible. And then of course, Sneb, the most toxic player in the game by far, right? I can just take a look at anywhere, you'll see how toxic this guy is. He's completely out of control. Of course, I'm joking because listen, okay, everyone here, very important who's watching, we are officially shutting down the Sneb is toxic meme, right? That's actually true. We're killing it, right? It's actually dying. We've got to shut it down, otherwise Sneb will never get a ArenaNet partner, and therefore will never be able to wash his putrid headband. And it's just going to get worse. But anyway, just to leap into the discussion right away then, I will actually hand it over to our brand new guest, Mighty Micah. Tell us, you recently made a video talking about some issues and concerns that you have with certain aspects of the Guild Wars 2 community. Would you like to give us a bit of an introduction, a general idea of what some of these concerns might be and how they manifest in the Guild Wars 2 community?
Sure. Yeah. So, first off, thank you so much for having me on. It's good to be here. Good to be able to share some thoughts. And, with the video, one of my goals was to sort of start the discussion in the first place. So this is perfect, man, and I appreciate it a lot. Honestly, we could talk about the video, some of the things that I brought up in the video. Admittedly, I would like to and I mentioned this earlier, sort of behind the scenes, but I do have a video coming out soon that I'm hoping to sort of clarify some things, because I think I came off in a way that I didn't intend to with the video that I made. I think I sort of communicated some things that aren't true. They're not beliefs that I hold. And I think I did a really bad job of presenting it. But I think that a good way to sort of start the discussion would be with sort of a few questions. And so I wrote them down so I didn't forget them here. But I think that it would be good to sort of address the first question, which is, does Guild Wars 2 have toxicity in the community? Now, that one probably seems a bit obvious. I mean, most online communities, most gaming communities do. But that's sort of where the discussion, I think, needs to start. Is there toxicity? The next one is it worse than other communities? And that was sort of where I think a lot of the fire came with the video that I shared, was because I was sort of asserting that it is worse in a particular community. And the final thing is this is where I did a really, really terrible job. So one of the things that I meant to sort of communicate with the original video is that the Guild Wars 2 online community, not as opposed to in-game community, is pretty toxic and more toxic than other games that I have been a part of, other sort of online communities that I've been a part of. So yeah, that's sort of it. I think it'd be a good idea to sort of define toxic, to sort of define what it is that we're talking about so that we can kind of pinpoint it down. But honestly, I think it would be great if we just sort of open the floor. I really would like to hear what you guys have to say, since y'all are sort of the veterans here. Y'all have been in the community, you've experienced it firsthand. And what do I know? I just showed up like 3 months ago, right? So would love to hear y'all's insights.
I'm chomping at the bit here. I want to.
Let's go.
So I want to start by saying, to address one of the questions you had, what does toxic mean? That was actually a problem I had with your video. When you say something's toxic, it actually doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean anything anymore. There was a time when maybe toxic had some kind of meaning, but we've diluted it to the point where literally anything can be toxic. Yeah.
Yeah.
It can just mean,
No, I agree with
I don't agree with that, or I hate that thing, or I'm mad about that thing. And like, look, the reality is I get called toxic constantly. And frankly, I think it's really unjustified given what I try to do and represent. Do I make lots of mistakes? Yeah. But toxic is like a harsh word that's turned out to mean nothing. And so in your video, when you're saying all these people are all toxic, I'm like, okay, well, Micah, what does that mean? So I'm curious what you think it means, right?
Sure. Yeah. So I think that, I mean, yeah, first off, I'm in agreement with you, man. I think that when everyone has a different definition of the same word, yeah, it loses all of its meaning. So, you know, part of the battle we face as humans is defining what it is we're talking about. Because in a sense, I mean, if we want to sort of get really deep and philosophical here, we could say, well, you know, everything means nothing until it's defined, right? All we have are words, and if we don't have our words, then we can't get anywhere. But yeah, no, it's a fair question. So what is toxicity? So I would say, at least in the video that I put out, mostly what I'm referring to is I would kind of separate at least two categories here. There could probably be other definitions, but I would say one of the biggest things that I've noticed is sort of a dismissiveness. People who don't do what we're doing today, people who shut down the conversation, people who they don't want to hear it. If you say, this is good in Guild Wars 2, and I talked about this a little bit in the video, if you sort of praise something or say, hey, ArenaNet did a really good job on this, or Guild Wars 2 excels at that, you will immediately see people sort of shut down the conversation. Don't tell me that's good. I know it's not good. I've played the game, etc. Or if you say, well, something is bad, this is bad, that's bad, it can be a similar thing. Well, I've played the game, you know, my community's played the game, whatever. And so I don't think that dismissiveness is healthy. I think it's very toxic. Toxic in the sense of, I don't know, if you go to like an actual toxin, you know, something that's going to choke you out, make you sick and die, presumably. You can really kill a community by shutting down the conversation. You can really kill a community by not listening, you know, because here's the thing. I think we all are aware of the fact that people can say some wild crap on the internet, okay? All of us probably have been there where we've said something where we look back and say, man, that was wild. I shouldn't have said that or whatever. But I think, I'm not saying we should acknowledge the just sort of wild, you know, crazy statements that people can make. But I am saying that there is a healthy situation in which if you hear something crazy, rather than just being like, you know, you're crazy, you're an idiot, get out of here, it might do us better if we say, now hold on a second, why is it that you say that? Why is it that you feel that way? How did you get to this point? Again, I think there's a healthy middle ground, because sometimes there is some things that I just don't think should be acknowledged because they're just too wild. But yeah, but I think another aspect of the toxicity too, what I would say would be sort of, you know, ad hominem, degradation, maybe excessive profanity, things that shut down the conversation. I don't know. They're kind of tied together, I suppose. But I think anytime you're attacking someone's character or attributing motive or what have you, you know, again, degrading somebody, how could you be so stupid as to think that? I think that it is best to not sort of have that mentality. I think in the video, that's sort of the toxicity that I've dealt with a lot in the game and that I've seen. And a lot of people sort of told me, well, all he's talking about is Reddit. There was a lot of comments that were like, we know Reddit's toxic. You didn't have to make this video. But I think that part of why sort of Reddit resonated with people was because of that exact sort of definition that I've laid out.
Let me try to summarize what I just heard from you. What I think you're saying.
Straw man incoming.
Oh yeah, debate.
No, I just want to make sure that I understand, because there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah.
What I think what I think you're saying is that toxicity, by your definition, is sort of exemplified by a lack of empathy and ability to communicate properly if faced with something you don't agree with. Does that sound like did I kind of pack that into a little pack? Is that good?
Can you say that one more time?
So I think what Micah is trying to say is that toxicity is exemplified by people's inability to communicate properly and quickness to be just angry at something and inability to empathize. That's what I was hearing. So I heard kind of three parts. Like people just like they don't agree with it and they immediately bite, right? They just immediately get angry. And then people are faced with things they don't agree with and they get hyperbolic about it. So they're just not really empathizing. They're not taking time to really consider what you're saying and sort of hear what you're not saying, if that makes sense. Because there are times, like, to me, to be completely honest, the first 12 minutes of your video, I was just like pissed at you the whole time. I was like, what are you saying? Like, come on. And Teapot kind of had like a live reaction because I was listening to it. I was like, what is this guy doing? Like, this is the most ridiculous video because he's really generalizing people. He's saying all of these people are toxic. And I just thought it was, I had that reaction immediately. I was like,
sure.
I had that like quick to be a little bit angry, right?
Yeah.
I actually like paused your video and I came back later and I listened to the rest of it and I was like, okay, I am hearing what he's not saying. He's gone through this experience and it kind of hurt. Like there's parts of it that hurt, that suck. As a content creator, I could like empathize with that. And there's parts of just maybe a little bit of anger and frustration and sadness and disappointment. I could start to just hear the emotion in your voice. And I started to realize, okay, well, he's being a little bit hyperbolic. I think he's maybe taking this with a lot of emotion. I don't think he means to be as perhaps offensive as he's being to some parts of the community. I'm not going to completely roast him anymore. It's kind of what I came to.
Yeah.
But I think what you're talking about is just online discourse surrounding this game is a big problem because people are so quick to take what you've said, and if they find one part of it that they don't like, they just run with it and they don't listen to any of the other context necessarily. And that's not to say that everyone is like that, but it is a big problem in general online discourse. But I feel like for the Guild Wars 2 community, it's particularly bad.
Yeah. And to kind of follow up on that, to really nail that down, I think that one issue that I've certainly experienced a lot in Guild Wars 2, and you know what? Here's some examples for you. Everyone's going to ask for examples, and quite rightly so. I would really invite everyone here who wants to kind of check this stuff, go and read a lot of the YouTube comments on any of my opinion videos I've made about the game, talking about new features with End of Dragons, Teatimes, right? Talking about world versus world, talking about certain builds, balance, right? Like all that kind of stuff. And actually, particularly, there's a really, really interesting video, actually. I love these videos. I like making videos that talk about good and bad things within the game. This is something that Micah was really hitting on here, actually. Like I've talked about a lot of stuff like Guild Wars 2's business model, the gear progression, right? Like the Holy Trinity, right? And whenever I read the comments, it's always like, yep, absolute garbage, right? Or yep, it's the best thing ever made, right? There's never like, yeah, that's pretty good actually. It's not too bad. Or like, I'm not really a big fan. No, this is absolutely horrible, worst thing ever made, right? Dead game, unplayable, or it's the best thing ever. Okay, it's incredible. No, every other game is terrible. In fact, you know what? Those other MMOs, horrible. Never play them. Uninstall them all, right? And this type of dialogue, I think, is, well, I know this was the other word that is, I think quite a popular word to use to describe this. I think it does end up a little bit culty, and it's not just specifically Guild Wars 2. I know a lot of games, specifically MMOs, are very tribal, right? There's the Final Fantasy tribe. Yeah. There is the Guild Wars 2 tribe. There is the WoW tribe, right? Hey, there's probably even the New World tribe out there somewhere. But, like this does happen a lot. But I think in Guild Wars 2, it is genuinely pretty extreme. I find the narrative surrounding the game to be very dominated by extreme voices. You don't really have proper dialogue and discussion. And typically the way it will go, I mean, the subreddit is a really good example of this, is that there'll be like oh, how is everyone feeling today? Are we shitting on the game today, or do we like the game today? And if everyone likes the game, then hooray, you know, all these positive things can get upvoted. Otherwise, you're going to get obliterated, right? You're going to get absolutely annihilated. And a lot of people might say this isn't a problem, it's not a big deal. I actually disagree, and it's not just because I'm a content creator. My favorite example would actually be the the Icebrood Saga. Now, the Icebrood Saga was met with extreme negativity in the community, right? And this, to me, was actually a really bad thing. Why? Because people said, okay, we don't like this part about it, so all of it is garbage, right? But the thing is that there was actually a lot of stuff that was done well in the Icebrood Saga, specifically with regards to one of Guild Wars 2's core issues, replayability, right? The story bosses got turned into strike missions, we had dragon response missions, Dragon Storm, right? And loads of extra achievements. They really went hard on this content is replayable, there's loads of new rewards. They actually added more infusions to the game, and ultra endgame cosmetic rewards than any other Living World season, right? There was actually a lot going well for it, but because there were definitely some negative aspects to it, right? It was certainly rushed, it was a little bit unfinished, and the content quality wasn't quite up to snuff. Nobody was even interested in listening to that. Like, no one was willing to even contemplate that there could be some positive things there. And what I'm trying to get at here in a slightly long-winded way is that this means that it's very, very difficult to get actual good feedback, right? And good conversations about the game, which is what, Micah and Sneb were alluding to earlier, because all of it gets drowned out in extremely polar opinions. And that's not the only example either, right? You could go through a lot of different things, right? You could talk about raids, you could talk about fractals, you could definitely talk about PvP and world versus world. And all of these conversations don't end up being very productive, simply because like the voices that are really, really loud are either incredibly positive or incredibly negative, right? And honestly, a lot of the time, incredibly negative, to be honest, with this stuff, which leads to a lot of problems, I think, with not only pushing the game forwards, but also allowing ArenaNet to interpret what's good and what's bad and how to fix it. I think that would you guys say that's a good example of the kind of thing we're getting at here?
Yeah, I'd like to comment on that. As many of you know, I'm in graduate school for consumer behavior. And what we find when people are filling out reviews or I suppose analyzing really anything is the people that are motivated to voice their opinion are typically people that are very polarized. So you either love a product or you hate the product. You hear very few voices in between. And that's because those people, they're just content. They don't hate it. They don't love it. So they're not motivated to say anything about it. Such is the same a lot with the Guild Wars 2 community, right? So Icebrood Saga comes out, you have people that either really liked it or really hated it, and people were very passionate in voicing that opinion. The trick is, like you have alluded to now, how does ArenaNet actually find real critiques? Like, how do they actually know what people are saying? Well, I know that ArenaNet actually puts out surveys and things, and so that's where they're trying to get the people that have maybe a medium voice. But I would say that if you're doing any sort of social listening, or you're trying to find out what people actually think about your game, you're not just going to go to Reddit and be like, oh, everybody hates it. Or you're not going to go to, I mean, to an extent, you are going to listen to social media and do that social listening. But if you want to get a more nuanced, accurate, representative opinion of how something went, you're going to undergo some actual, like, in a sense, research methodology. You're going to put out surveys to a big sample size and try to get a representation of the whole spectrum. Otherwise, yeah, you're just going to get those people that are like, holy crap, I want to just rant about the game for an hour and just be mad at it. And you're going to get the people that are like, this is the best game ever. And that can be a little bit startling.
Yeah, there's an interesting way to go about collecting data like that too that's balanced. You can collect balanced data and like balanced feedback from content creators and people that are very enthusiastic about the game. But there are problems with that because ArenaNet has been burned very severely by content creators, by like test groups in the past, because here comes the meme again. But when raid testing was a thing, what happened after raid testing? There were leaks from raid testing. They got a bunch of big guilds involved, and the day the raids dropped, there was #first on Twitter, and then there was a very public disowning of the guild that posted that on Twitter. They got burned by the partner program, people leaking stuff, destabilizing matrices. They've gotten burned by partners saying things that partners, well, really no humans at all should be saying. And they have to deal with stuff like that. And then you go to, goodbye, Micah's internet. It's gone.
Oh, no.
I think I'm here.
Okay. But, and kind of like you said,
I'm out of here. This conversation's not good.
It's toxic.
I disagree.
It's too toxic. I'm out.
They get burned by their test groups. They get burned by the partners. And then the content creators, whenever the content creators try to compile information for them and post it on Reddit, it gets downvoted, and people get mad at the content creators for shilling their own content and wanting upvotes and money. Like, you see an artist post, this actually happened to me. I had a friend that was a very good artist, and she drew a picture of my Reaper, posted it on Reddit, and said, I charge this amount of dollars for commissions. If you're interested, then you can message me. People in the comments, first of all, said that it was way too booba and it was awful. And then they said, you really shouldn't shill yourself here if you're an artist. People aren't going to pay you money. You should just say you charge in-game gold for the art because no one's going to buy it. And it's like, okay, cool. Well, they're a professional artist. Like, they did me a favor and drew a picture. Like, what's up with that mentality? Like, it's frustrating. But then, anyways, something gets through the Reddit filter and it's posted on there, and ArenaNet says, I know, I can trust MightyTeapot's opinion. MightyTeapot's been a partner for a long time. He does all these big community run. He does raid tournaments. He does PvP tournaments. Let's go and let's check out the comments on his TeaTime podcast where he gets together and he talks with friends about the game. And the first comment that's going to be thumbs up is, Brazil's on the podcast. I guess I can't watch this one. I have to dislike the video. And then there's going to be stuff saying, like, everything Teapot said was completely wrong, and here's why. And they list 47 bad reasons. Well, and then, but it's if like we said, like, if you're a dev and you're trying to collect useful feedback, where the fuck do you do it? Like, where are you going to get it from?
No, you actually collect it yourself. You do social. There are ways that you do that. Social listening is important, so you do keep on top of like hashtags. You look at all the different social medias, and you have to have an understanding of what each social media demographic represents. Then you have to do your own research and actually do surveys and things. And then there's also a component of analyzing in the game industry. I'm sure there's a component where you analyze what people are actually doing in the game, or are people leaving the game? Do you have more people completing certain achievements? Where are people spending their time? And if you take and consolidate all of those things, you can actually get a representative idea of what people collectively think. And then I think you would also try to take those people and put them in cults, not really cults. You'd put them in personas, right? So you'd say, hey, like persona A, this is what they're doing. Persona B, this is what they're doing. Persona C. And this is how representative each of those personas are to the entire collective demographic of Guild Wars 2. How do we please the majority, but not completely isolate the minority? That it's actually a very, very tricky science. And I love it, but at the same time, I do not envy the people that have to deal with the backlash all the time and have to read all the negative comments and such.
Yeah, it's very difficult to do. And obviously a lot of it is going to be gathering data, like stuff like the surveys and stuff like that. I think you do have to be a little bit careful with looking at in-game analytics. I think ArenaNet's actually a bit famous for doing this. They'll look at who's doing what, and what percentage of players are playing this build. It's actually, this is kind of the way they actually buff and nerf specializations a lot of the time, is if something's underplayed, they'll just make it really, really good until people start playing it. It's why stuff like Tempest and in a way Scrapper has actually got so good. Because it's pretty good, but it's not good enough, right? Let's just keep hitting it, right, until people start playing it. So you end up with some really, you have to be careful there because you can get some potentially bad outcomes by looking at data a little bit too much. But I think that, kind of talking about the YouTube comments, what Brazil was mentioning there, I really want to talk about this, and I think it really links to what Sneb was talking about earlier with empathy, actually. There are videos where I get called out for being a shill and that I just hate the game in the same video. It's like, what? And this is, in my opinion, one of the really, really toxic components of discussion and discourse around Guild Wars 2. It's that both sides of the argument don't believe that the other is acting in good faith, right? Like they think, oh, you must be coping, right? Like you secretly hate the game, but you're coping. Or like, no, you love the game, you just don't want to love the game, right? You're just salty, you're jaded veteran, right? Your opinion means nothing, right? Like this disregarding that someone could even possibly disagree with you, right, is pretty crazy, right? Like that's where a lot of this toxicity lies. I think the cause. I want to bring you guys in because I could just talk about this for such a long time. Actually, I've got to prevent myself from going too hard. But I think this will be the idea I bring to the table here. I think that Guild Wars 2 actually is unique in this regard, because of course you do see this behavior in other MMOs there as well, but I think that the history of Guild Wars 2 actually makes it a little bit different to other cases. There have been a lot of players in the game, and well, because there are so many game modes in Guild Wars 2, it definitely feels like a zero-sum game, right? A lot of the time. And you can look at, if you look at, say, Final Fantasy and World of Warcraft, these are predominantly PvE games, right? Especially Final Fantasy. Like, Final Fantasy is a PvE game. Like, PvP is not relevant in that game whatsoever. WoW, a little bit more so, but still heavily PvE dominated. In Guild Wars 2, we have a whole bunch of game modes. I would actually say open world stands on its own. Then you have PvE. We're talking fractals, raids, strike missions, and so on. Then you have PvP, right, which is its own thing. And then you also have world versus world. And I think this unique thing about the game, that it does cover so much ground with all the different activities that you can do, being a little bit less focused, actually does lead to a huge amount of animosity in the community, because historically, some of those game modes have been winners and some of those game modes have been losers, right? And funnily enough, a lot of the players who are more likely to speak, right, are the people who have been a bit screwed over, right? A raider is much more likely to be invested in the game to the point where they'd want to go on Reddit, they'd want to talk about stuff on Twitter, talk about stuff on Twitch, on YouTube, right, and have these conversations. And they're probably not very happy. Same with someone who's really into fractals or into PvP or into world versus world. And this is where you do get a lot of friction in the community. And to be clear, it is definitely not a lot of people. I mean, like, the narrative in any game is always driven by a vocal minority of players, whether it be positive or negative. But because you have so many discordant voices, and they're all from coming at different angles, and they all are in a way competing with each other for the attention of the developers, I think you really do actually have a different environment in Guild Wars 2 compared to other MMOs. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, there's a lot of variety in the different game modes you can play, and all of the players, like the core, like the hardcore gamers and all of those game modes, think all of the other game modes that aren't theirs are easy, and that the people that play it are bad and they're hateful. Like, you can talk to a PvE, like a hardcore, you have people that are interesting, like they're interestingly balanced in all of these. People like Valen, that I think play every game mode and like play with good guilds in every game mode. But like world versus world players, I don't want that PvE trash clogging up my queue times. Get out of my game mode. This is mine. It doesn't matter if the game mode dies and ArenaNet doesn't support it. At least it's my game mode. It feels like a lot of the time that's the interaction you have with world versus world players when you go into world versus world. I'm not saying they're all like that. It's just been my experience more than once. And you have people that are raiders, and they'll shit on the people doing Octovine. It's like, look at this noob. He's doing 2k DPS with his open world build. Get this trash out of PvE. Go do PvP. That's an easy game mode. Go farm your pips and bronze or whatever. And then you have the PvP players who think that they're the absolute pinnacle of the game because they win traded to the top of the leaderboard for 3 seasons, and they think that that's Apex Gaming and Guild Wars 2, and that every other game mode is easy and no one else has any skill. And that's like the far extremes of all of them. And then you have, I guess, the people in like open world PvE that just think everyone should quit or everyone should be banned or whatever, that if you don't do meta trains, you're poisonous and you're an elitist and ArenaNet should not cater to you. And there are extremes like that, and those ones are very vocal. You can find them all over the place. You can find them on Reddit. You can find them in YouTube comments. And they're very in your face about it. They do not apologize. And whenever I was like really into dungeons back in the days and when I was in D&T, and we would make meta builds, like we used to spend a lot of times on the dungeon forums and on the PvE forums, just like people would post questions and then you would get into fight. I guess this is a rabbit hole we don't need to go down, but there are a lot of very intense and extreme people in the kind of cobwebs and holes in the back of all of these game modes, and new players coming in are faced with them. Those people are there at the door, ready to kick people out of the game mode. If you come into raids, if you come, you're a little peepo. You just got your.
I mean,
exactly.
No,
you've got your exotic berserker's armor off the trading post. You watch the YouTube build that's like 2 years out of date, but it's still probably fine. And you're like, I raided casually in Final Fantasy. I want to try raids in this game. You come in, you join an LFG KP or KP. What's KP? I don't even know what that is, KP. You join a training group and people will flame you, or people will say like, hey, like, did you even find a build? Did you even do your homework before you join this training group? You have shit like that. And World versus World players are really bad at this too. Brazil being extreme, okay. But yeah, it's just like, help people come through the door. Don't slam the door in their face, and we'll get really far if that happens. If that just starts to happen. But yeah, enough of me. I'll shut up and let you all talk.
I think that does link into the state of the game, though. I think people are very defensive around their game mode and what's going on there, and they're really worried that anything could potentially, like, kind of cut the thread and it just drops into oblivion. So I think that's just the history of the game and the way the development cycle has gone that tends to have people a little bit on edge whenever anything like this is going on. But I do think that there needs to be a lot more empathy and a lot better communication between the different groups. Okay, Brazil is obviously going hard. They're talking about this for sure. But I think that we do need to see people having proper conversations a little bit more. And I don't know, it's actually a really difficult spot to work out of, because as it stands right now, a lot of normal people probably look at what's going on with the way the game is discussed, and they're going like, dude, I'm not going in, like I don't want to talk. Because everyone's just going insane. If I have like a moderate opinion, I'm going to get roasted for it or get called out for being a shill. I'm going to get hated by both sides, right? Okay, someone says, why is it like that? Well, it's like that, okay, if you want the honest answer, it's like that because people don't like want to wade in and kind of take the fire, right? Like, it's very, very unpleasant to kind of get in here, because if you do try and moderate the discussion, you're probably going to get like flamed a little bit by both sides of the equation, right? Rather than just one. If you pick your little tribe, right, in Guild Wars 2, you can at least have some people at your back, right? If you kind of try and make it a better place, you're probably going to get trolled by both of them simultaneously, right? Which is not a very comfortable position to be, right? And yeah, this is a
absolutely confirm.
Yeah, it's how it works. It does really need to change, in my opinion. This is one of the reasons, and I want to bring Micah back into this conversation, actually, because we just been going crazy. Like the absolute freight train over here. We're getting excited, right? We're out of control. But yeah, like the reason I want to bring this up, because I do think it is genuinely important. I think that the dialogue being pretty toxic, being a little bit polarized, actually does drive players away. I think it does go like, whoa, what the hell is going on here for a new player, specifically in the hardcore game modes. I think it's less of an issue for more entry-level play in open world, because you don't really have like heated debates about that, because it's like, whatever, right? But what you do get is like in all of the end game stuff, I think the dialogue and the narrative is pretty bad, right? And it's not even about being positive or negative, by the way. You can have very productive negative conversations, right? You know, about the game. You can you know, give critique and say, hey, that's not good. This, you know, this is the way you could do it better, right? I don't like that. How can it be better? That's not a problem. The problem is when it gets very, very extreme and it's just two sides shouting at each other without listening. I think the perfect example of this would actually be there was a recent drama around a change that was made to build templates, and it affected speedrunning, and specifically dungeon speedrunning actually was like the real thing that got hit by this. And it got so toxic between the quote unquote casuals and the quote unquote hardcore players that nobody was listening, right, at all. I even made a really detailed video. It was a 32-minute video where I break down every single detail, talk about examples. It was concise because it was a complicated issue. I know 30 minutes doesn't sound like it, but believe me, right, I cut that down a lot because it is a very complicated issue. And and so many of the people on the Reddit, oh my God, simply did not understand the issue. They just said, this is toxic, right? Like this behavior that the hardcore was doing. Yep, it's toxic. It's exploiting. They're scum, right? They should all quit the game, right? And you know what? A lot of them did, by the way. But anyway, that's not the point. It's just they didn't even listen, right? This is the real issue that I have, and that's what really resonated with what you were saying, Micah, is that people didn't even try to understand, right? The perspective or the issue, right? A lot of people thought it was to do with this thing called precasting. A lot of people in the chat might have heard of this. It's where you apply boons and powerful effects, right, before you go into an encounter. It wasn't actually about that, really. Like, this was actually an incredibly minor facet of it. It was actually mostly about out-of-combat movement that was actually causing the problems, an issue which didn't affect everyone. So you just got into this absolutely bizarre situation where a bunch of players were like making fun of hardcore players for something getting fixed that actually didn't change, right? They're like, haha, precasting is dead, even though it absolutely isn't, and it didn't change, and it was barely anything to do with this, right? People just simply were not able to comprehend it, and they didn't want to hear it either. And again, like, you can go and find these Reddit threads, you can go back and look at these threads, and you will see like just how, like, all the upvoted comments were like this, like but borderline misinformation, right? And the fact that they were crowing, right? Like, people were enjoying the fact that these players were unhappy, right? Kind of like they were seriously, that's actually wild to me, right? That there were a large portion of the community, or the vocal community, to be fair, right, were enjoying the fact that these players were miserable and not happy with that change. That to me is completely unacceptable, right? That's insanely unacceptable. You cannot have, the game should be united, right? Everyone in every game mode, we're on the same team here, right? Like, we can disagree about things, but ultimately we're into Guild Wars 2 and we want the game to do well, right? And I'm sorry, like, if you want the game to do well, there is absolutely no place for, making fun of a group of players who really love the game, right? And the game has now got worse for them. Like, mocking them, not listening to their concerns, right, is absolutely unacceptable. That is almost like the definition of toxicity, right? Like, within a scene, like internal toxicity for sure.
And from all sides, that should be really noted, right? And I think you insinuated that from every side. If I'm a hardcore raider and I am saying, oh yeah, all the people that like story should die, story sucks, then we're really only hurting the greater community, right? We want Guild Wars 2 is very multifaceted. There are lots of different game modes. We talked about that. Collectively, we are the Guild Wars 2 community, and we should celebrate when other people are enjoying content or when they get new content. Recently, I had some people saying raids should die in my chat, and I was like, why do you think raids should die? Because, I understand if you've had negative experiences and whatnot, and I get that, and I can empathize with that. I've had them too. But suggesting that an entire game mode should die when you have content creators that specifically just go for records and like that's exciting and they try to push the boundaries of the game and like that's like a cool niche competitive scene. Is it the biggest scene in the game? No. But why, if you don't really engage with it that much, why would you want it to completely die? I think that sort of discourse is harmful to the general community from both sides. If hardcore players say story sucks and it should all die and they should just remove it and there should only be raids, that's bad. If the players that really enjoy story say, oh yeah, I'm happy there's no new raids and happy there's no new fractals, I don't really feel like that's appropriate either. I just want to ask Micah. I'd be very curious. I feel like this is a good point to get Micah to explain the three different, like we've been alluding to cults this whole time, but what are the three different quote unquote cults, right? And let's dissect that a little bit. I think that would be interesting.
Sure. Yeah. If it's okay, I kind of want to back up just a little bit because there was a sort of thought I had. I guess it ties into a little bit of your question. So in the video, I sort of had a thought process that I was following, and I was talking about subsets of subsets of subsets, sort of narrowing it down. And my intention was to speak to, again, the Guild Wars 2 online community, not necessarily the in-game community. I think from what all of you guys have shared, we all kind of agree that there are, of course, toxic aspects of the game and toxic communities and stuff. When I talked about those three communities, in my brain, even though I didn't communicate it super well, I was talking about them as a subset of the online community. And I did mention in the video that that wasn't the entire population. I didn't make that very clear. I don't believe that the entire population of Guild Wars or the entire population of just the online community is in one of these three categories. I didn't make that clear. I communicated that terribly. But I think that these categories are very prevalent in those communities. And I guess the categories are kind of I compared them to cults. In hindsight, I think the analogy was good. I wouldn't have stuck with the terminology because it's just not that deep. I mean, some people are going to love the game, some people are going to hate the game, and some people are going to be on the sideline just kind of chilling and playing the game. But this is where I kind of want to back up. I think the main concern I have is because we can talk about like, okay, there's this toxic people and they shouldn't be that way. And I think that kind of boils down to the philosophical, why can't we all just get along? And that's an age-old question because there's always the people that aren't going to get along. You know, there's always the people that are going to be toxic no matter what. And yeah, wouldn't it be great if we could all just get along? Of course. But the question is, what's the practical solution? How can we sort of facilitate an environment in which people are getting along? And I mean, ultimately, there's some people that aren't going to partake in that. But one of the concerns that I have with the online community, and part of what motivated me to make the video, is I think it was MightyTeapot who may have been saying this a minute ago. The perception that new players have coming into the game, if they look on Reddit, if they look on the official forums, if they go into the YouTube comments, in my opinion, is pretty bad. I think they're going to look at the game and be like, oh, shoot, this is pretty toxic. I don't know if I want to hop into this game. And so I guess the question that's kind of been in my head as we talk here is I'm going, how can we fix that perception? Because I don't believe, again, you know, I communicated terribly. I don't believe that the entire Guild Wars 2 community is overwhelmingly toxic. Now, my anecdotal experience has been overwhelmingly toxic, and I can stand by that. I'm not claiming that that's representative of the whole population, but I'm going, if we hold true that the online community looks toxic, if we hold that true, that people who are sort of at the outside peering in going, what's this game all about? And they say, whoa, I don't want to join this game. If we hold that true, it's like, I mean, we're all content creators here. My question is, how can we fix this? Like, how can we go in and sort of change the perception and say, you know what, this is just people who are on the outside? And a minute ago, someone in the comments actually said something to the effect of, the reason it looks that way, he said, is because normal, in quotation marks, normal people aren't speaking up. And that's something that I've noticed, you know, when a toxic sort of culture is facilitated, like I would say the Reddit's pretty toxic. Usually the normal people, the good people, the kind people, they sort of back out because it's like, oh my gosh, I don't even want to go there. I can say personally, that's what I did. You know, I was sort of wanting to jump into the community, and then it was like, man, I would share something or ask a question or whatever, and it would just get downvoted into the floor and be like, you idiot, you know, what do you even play this game? Get out of here, you know? So I sort of just said, all right, you know what? I think I'm just not gonna, you know, partake in this community or whatever. So the question I'm more concerned with, kind of going back, I know everything I share is a word vomit. I'm not great at forming my opinions. The video was probably good evidence of that. But the question I want to go back to is like, how do we as content creators facilitate that? How can we get the normal people to have a voice? How can we get the good aspects of the community, which I think are the majority? How can we get those people in the online space? How can we sort of empower them to have a voice? A few months ago, I created a subreddit for Guild Wars 2 for content creators to share their stuff, because I noticed that when content creators shared it on the Guild Wars 2 Reddit, it would, people hated that crap, and kind of what Brazil, what you were saying earlier, it was like, oh, this shill, oh, this, clickbait YouTuber trying to make money. I remember in the New World Reddit, this is not Guild Wars 2, but I had posted a video, and this guy was like, could you summarize your video? He's like, I don't want to watch the video because I have a policy of not supporting content creators and giving them money.
What?
And I was like, so you want me to summarize the video? Like, so I kind of told him, I was like, well, look, man, I'll probably get paid like a penny for your video. Like, it's not that big of a deal. And he was like, well, do you mind if he said, do you mind if I use like ad block so that you don't get paid? Because I do want to hear what you have to say. And I was like, sure, man. Like, that's fine. Like, I wasn't mad, but I was just like, dude, like, I promise you, I'm not getting paid. My check this month is $3.57. Like, anyways.
It's kind of like if a hotel has like a free breakfast and you work like the front desk or something, and some guy walks in, he's like, I'm going to go eat the breakfast, but I don't stay at the hotel. Okay?
I've done that plenty of times.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I don't know if I can stop you, really. I'm just going to let this happen. But why are you asking for permission?
Why are you here?
Yeah, I don't ask for permission. I just go in and fucking eat the breakfast.
Yeah.
That waffle maker we have in Texas, no, it's irrelevant. Never mind.
No, it's not irrelevant, man. Come on.
The big fucking Texas waffles and the Texas-shaped waffle makers that you can make yourself. You just walk into a hotel on Sunday morning and just pretend that you stay there and just go in and eat Texas-shaped waffles. It's good.
Dude, it's a whole thing. It's a whole thing. I don't want to derail this, but chicken and waffles, guys,
it's good.
That is a meal in the South. Like,
It's
literally,
good.
It is.
Bro. Maybe it's everywhere. I don't know. I just eat it. I don't really think about it much. So
yeah, look, I just want to
peanut
touch on the
butter.
content creator thing. I don't post anything to Reddit anymore. I haven't for a long time. I'll comment and stuff on Reddit and join the conversation, but I'll never. I've been struggling a bit because I've thought, oh man, I want to help the greater NA rating population, and I've been making these statics and I've automated things and I have people helping and we have this forum and it's been working out pretty well. And I keep toying with the idea of posting it to Reddit and being like, hey, if you want to get into raids, I'll help you. Like, we have this community. But I live in a little bit of fear that will be really bad. That people will just destroy me on Reddit. And I frankly don't want that for the community that we fostered around helping people get into raids. So I don't try to help a larger population because I'm worried that larger population is just going to like clap back at me for some reason. And I think that's kind of sad. Because content creators are really the lifeblood of video games now. And if you don't think that's true, then look at how much companies are willing to pay big influencers. Just look at it. There's a reason why people pay for influencer marketing. It's because it works. And so Guild Wars 2 doesn't have a lot of content creators. I think there's a lot of reasons for that. I think one, it's because there's not a lot of monetary incentive to do it. There's not a lot of companies' support for content creators. And I think that the community tends to push away many new content creators for one reason or another, right?
That's all I had.
I want to say this. I don't know why you would be upset for a content creator posting something they're proud of and sharing it with the community. I actually don't. I don't get it. Like, maybe you don't like it. That's okay. if somebody is, look, if you like the game, if you have any hobby and somebody is trying to create content about it and spread awareness about your hobby, why would you ever, even if that's not the part of the hobby that you're like really into, why would you ever try to tear it down? Because don't you want your hobby to grow and for more people to enjoy it and to consume that and have more people to play with? And like, I don't really understand why we would try to tear down that.
I know that's
but
I know that's quite what was being said. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
No, I'm getting to that. So if a content creator posts something, my understanding was that there's something about, hey, if somebody posts something that gets downvoted, don't whine about it. I guess that I don't feel like I'm whining about it. What I'm saying is that it's scary, right? Like it's kind of frustrating because you're like, oh man, I want to grow the scene. I love the game. I love the community. And then the community just fights back at you. And you're like, but this is the thing that I care about, right? Like I'm so passionate about this and I'm just not getting anything back. And so, yeah, I don't post anymore. I'm not whining about that. I'm just a fact. I don't post anymore because the community really fights back against it. And so I'm not really sure how to handle it. I want to spread awareness, but it seems like there's some distaste for that. If you look at other communities that, like, I played a lot of RuneScape, a lot of 2007scape. Love 2007scape. I still read their subreddit all the time because I think they're hilarious. They've got good memes and stuff. They like love their content creators. They call them out when they do stupid stuff, of course, but there was a recent video that came out and it has like hundreds of awards and super high quality, and people are wicked supportive of Swampletics. And Jagex has like an award ceremony for their content creators. It's just total night and day, right? It's total night and day. The way that content creators are treated in Guild Wars 2 is vastly different. And I question why. Like, I don't fully understand why. I really wish that I had a good explanation, but yeah, I don't get it.
Well, I think perhaps that there certainly is, you do get downvoted sometimes. I think in general, if you make your content in the right way, it does generally get upvoted. Okay, I mean, this is certainly my experience. I feel like I'm one of the few content creators that the subreddit likes sometimes. But like, I think a lot. I mean, I don't know. I think that you have to. You have to be willing to approach people in a way that they can relate to. And I think perhaps some of the reason why people have bad experiences, because in a way, I think quite ironically, maybe we don't always approach the community in the way that we're asking them to approach us. In other words, trying to relate, trying to empathize. I think if you do try and tailor your content in a way that people who maybe don't know who you are and don't know what you care about can understand, it does tend to do pretty well. A lot of the raid, a lot of the raid tournament stuff does really well. A lot of the contests and competitions that get run, that's pretty popular there as well. The stuff that is a little bit weird is that sometimes people do like community events and they don't get like mega upvoted all the time. Like, like a big raid training event only gets like, like maybe like 80 upvotes or something like that. That's a little weird to me, I guess. And I guess maybe people just aren't interested enough or it isn't presented in a sufficiently good way. But hey, it's difficult to do this. And the content creation thing is a little bit interesting. I think that there is a certain distrust of content creators, probably not unique to Guild Wars 2, to be fair. I mean, like, I know one thing, actually, certainly with New World and Classic WoW, particularly, people did not like streamers and content creators in those games at all. They really do not like them. Obviously, there's a lot of people who do, but there was a lot of like, okay, here's how you avoid these people. Here's how you don't play here, right? Here's a list of like where they are and like what server they're on. Don't play on these servers, right? So it's not just Guild Wars 2 in this regard. I think it's like potentially even more aggressive in some other games. For sure. But in a way, I do think it kind of I think this is a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy and a vicious cycle. I think that if you want to get upvoted on the Reddit, it has to be insanely try hard. I think your content has to be it has to be watertight, you know, like it has got to be like, bam, you got to nail it 100%. Like you cannot make a single misstep in your communication. Otherwise, like, boom, you're going to get annihilated. I think that's maybe true in other games. It's just maybe a little bit easier to do that because, again, it's something I mentioned earlier, right? The community in Guild Wars 2 is much more divided because there are loads of different areas. I mean, you talked about RuneScape, right, Sneb? But the thing is that isn't that a really good example of a way a community can be kind of united? Like, RuneScape is about goals, it's about progression, and that is the game, right? Obviously you can kind of set your own goals within that context, but everyone in that game is essentially pushing in one direction. I would say that RuneScape is an incredibly distilled, pure experience, right? Like, I think that would be a good way to describe the game. Whereas Guild Wars 2 is a lot more variable, so you tend to have a lot of kind of clashing opinions and clashing interests, which I think does lead to certain niche areas of the game perhaps not being received as well, unless you're very careful about the way you introduce it and like really go out of your way, right, to try and kind of welcome people into your little corner of the game. You know, you have to be super careful about the way you approach that, but still, yeah, I think it would be really cool if the community was a little bit more like that. But and that kind of goes back to something that I want to bring up again on this topic, is that I think we should just be encouraging people to just actually meet each other. I think there's a lot of parallels you could draw this in real life, actually, but I think a lot of the toxicity in the game is the fear of the unknown, right? It's not knowing. A lot of people who hate raiders, to be honest, they've never met a raider, right? A lot of people who hate PvPers have never really actually sat down and chatted with someone who plays PvP, right? Same thing with world versus world, and vice versa as well. A lot of people who like, oh, those, you know, filthy, dirty casuals, right, probably don't hang out with the more casual community. They just, there isn't that contact. There isn't that contact. I think Guild Wars 2, it really needs something that kind of unifies everyone, where players meet different types of other player. You know, this is actually, it's really funny. This is one of the game's greatest strengths, right? That you don't have to engage in stuff you don't want to do. If you don't want to raid, great, you never raid. Don't want to PvP? Great, never PvP. Don't want to PvE? Great, you never have to PvE at all. You can just only play world versus world, right? Another massive problem. It isn't, okay, because that does not happen. Very off topic there, but no, that is a complete fiction. Really good example. $45,000 got dumped into the economy. Go watch my video on that, by the way, Zach. It reset within hours. And then also, Guild of them in Brazil, Nike tried to market manipulate onions for a meme. It worked again for less than like 3 hours, and that's like a completely random item with a lot of gold invested. That is a complete myth. That is misinformation. Sorry about that, guys. Bit of a sidetrack, but I hate misinformation, and that is misinformation. You are wrong, sir. Okay, next. Yeah, so I think we just need to try the way to fix this, which is what Micah was talking about, and I'd be curious if you think this would be a good solution. The solution is just to try and bring players together and get them to try the other game modes, and then you can kind of then you can start spreading a more positive message. Because as of right now, the issue is that people will say something and it won't go. It will be left uncontested, right? You know, someone will say raiders are toxic, or you know, PvPers are toxic, and no one really interacts and says, no, that's not really the case. You know, like I was hanging out with these guys. They're very, very cool, right? Like, yeah, obviously some people get toxic, but dude, people get toxic when you fail the Octovine, right? People probably get toxic in Dragon Stand when it gets out of control, right? Or when like someone messes up the Silver Waste farm, right? I've seen it get out of control, guys. You know, I really have. But yeah, I think this is the issue. Like, people need to be a lot more connected and move out of their groups and be a little bit more comfortable to go into the other spheres and just get to know different types of players. And I think everyone will realize that everyone's really not that bad. And this is a big part of the message here that I'd want to convey. Like, there is a bit of a reputation that Guild Wars 2 is kind of toxic, right? Like, with the way different areas of the game interact when they do, right? That's where you see the toxicity manifest, right? Normally, it's actually, you know, very, very chill. Like, no one really does anything crazy. It's when different types of players interact, that's when you get a lot of toxicity. I think that's kind of that whole image, right? Of this, like, oh yeah, it gets crazy on the Reddit, man, when people start talking about this. Or oh yeah, like, oh, World versus World, when PvE players start joining and gets really, really toxic. Oh, raiders, when new people come, oh man, it's out of control. It's because players simply don't interact with each other enough in this regard. They kind of stay in your lane and do your own thing. But if you really kind of get to know everyone in the other scenes, I think it would be nowhere near as bad, right? I think that to me is the core issue, is that there isn't this centralized, unified, binding community in the game. It's too spread out.
Yeah, it's very difficult because Guild Wars 2, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe I'm remembering this incorrectly, but I feel like in the past, ArenaNet has kind of been like, this is the game for everyone, right? Like choose your path, do what you want to do, play how you want to play. And I think that's really cool. The consequence of that is that you have people that sort of glom onto one of these different areas, and they sort of isolate themselves from the other parts of the community. And so that can create some dissension. Like people can get a little bit upset or a little heated about different things because they want the game to be molded in the way that they enjoy it. Yeah, that can be pretty problematic. A question I have for you, Teapot, is you mentioned, hey, let's get these people to communicate. How do you do that? Anecdotally, I've been receiving a lot of comments lately where people are actually accusing me of legitimately being toxic. And I get the meme. And I understand that I'm not perfect, obviously, and that I've said things and made mistakes, etc.
What?
But whenever I've done that, I've tried to correct them, and I've tried to become better. And whenever I'm getting these comments lately, I started just saying, here's my Discord, like, let's talk. I've actually done that quite a bit. I've never had anyone take me up on it. Ever.
There's a good way to get all of these people talking all at once and to bring out the worst and the best of them. Go to Lion's Arch and post in map chat, hi, I'm a new player. What's a ranged build that I can play in every game mode, period? I just want to play one build, period. Thank you. See what happens.
So, okay, to actually address that, though, I think the way you do it is by realizing that it's not actually as bad as it might seem. Like, we obviously hear a lot of negative things because we're, as a content creator, you are going to experience exactly the same thing that we've been describing during the show, right? Is that you're going to get like a lot of people who are very, who like you a lot of people that really, really hate you. Okay, that is basically the way a lot of your feedback is going to go. But ultimately, there are a lot of people who just don't speak up but are interested. Like if you actually want to do stuff like this, there are a lot of people, the silent majority, who do want to actually give it a try and get engaged. They just maybe don't feel comfortable to do so. And I think the key is you can craft a safe environment for players trying out new things and having new experiences. And as long as you can do that, then I think you will get there eventually. It's just a case of grind, in my opinion. Like just a case of grinding out like really, really hard, I think. It just takes time, and you need to like get more people involved.
I was going to say something with regards to, so we were kind of talking about how ArenaNet is designed to sort of facilitate, you can play whatever game mode you want and progress. I actually did a video on that the other day. I agree with that, and I think that one of the best ways for people to sort of cross those lines, well, it's not one of the best ways right now, but hypothetically, one of the best ways that sort of brings people together to have conversations with each other and interact with each other would be Reddit, official forums, and YouTube. But the problem is that all three of those communities, this goes back to kind of what I was saying earlier, all three of those communities have gotten so toxic to the point that none of the normal people, none of the kind people want to hop on there and have the discussion. And so it's like, I'm not saying that, I'm not disagreeing. I agree 100%. I think that it's going to help a lot when people are having those interactions and communications. And I think that if we're responsible content creators, maybe we can come up with a way to sort of facilitate that. Because at the end of the day, if we sort of spread the word and do like a, I don't know, sort of an awareness campaign or whatever, bring awareness, obviously that's the first step. But if there's no system put in place, it's not going to last. eventually, 10 years from now, presumably if the MMO is still going and we're all gone, or maybe we're still here, whatever, unless we're constantly spreading awareness, that's going to end. So unless something fundamentally changes with the system of the game, which Guild Wars 2 is designed to facilitate every game mode, I don't necessarily think they should change that. Maybe they could add incentives. Maybe that would be a way to fix it. But I guess where my mentality is at is like, if we already have these facets, if we already have these outlets for the community to come together and, get to know each other and cross these game modes, which is Reddit, which is YouTube, which is the official forums, how can we fix them? Because if they're broken, if they're messed up, it was interesting on the video I made. A lot of people were like, "Oh, come on, dude, it's Reddit. Everybody knows the Reddit's toxic." And I'm kind of like, "Well, that's sad, man. Like, yeah, it's obviously good that you can acknowledge the reality of it, but is there a way to fix it? Like, is there anything that we can do to fix this? Because I think that might solve the problem itself if we can figure out how to fix it."
Well, yeah, but we just can't go out of our lane. That's not our job. Our job is not to fix it. Our job is to promote positive communication. But if we really wanted to like change the community and how they interact and whatever, ArenaNet would need a community manager to step in and communicate constantly, right? And sort of, in a sense, control the community a bit. Because a lot of the discourse that gets really heated is actually just misinformation or miscommunication surrounding like a blog post or like some promotional thing that happened, and people get really heated about that and go back and forth and back and forth. If we had like constant communication, I think that would be a big boon. But I don't believe that content creators can moderate the entire community. That's not our job. We're not community managers. And
I'm not
I
saying
don't
that
think
we moderate the entire community. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is we can incentivize it. And I think one of the best things that we can do is get the normal people to speak up. Because if you have a following and you have a massive community that you're constantly in touch with, empower those people to speak up. Host some sort of event on Reddit. Try and get people back into the Reddit. Because if the majority of the player base is friendly, if the majority of the player base are good people, and presumably a lot of them are on Reddit. There's a lot of people on the Reddit forum. What I'm saying is why, I mean, look, we all just admitted that we don't want to share crap on Reddit. Why? And are we alone? No, I don't think so. I think there's probably a lot of people that are of the mentality like, I don't want to share anything on Reddit. So how do we fix that? That's what I'm saying. Fix that. Fix the I don't want to go on Reddit. I don't want to go on the official forums because it's so terrible. Is there a way that we can incentivize people to enjoy those sort of situations for what they were created to be?
What I think we're kind of saying something similar. I'm saying yes, as a content creator, you want to promote positive interactions, but what I disagree with is the idea of incentivize. I'm not really sure what you mean by incentivize, I guess, because to me, I might be like, hey, we should go talk about X on the forums, or like if there's a big bug, we all need to report it. We need to take video of it. We need to put it like that. Maybe that's positive interaction or something. But to say like we need to completely shift the narrative or we need to completely shift the culture doesn't necessarily all come from us. Culture is very much a top down. The developers have a big part in establishing culture, a big part. Because we don't have a community manager, we are left to our own devices. And that's why there are all of these subcultures which is kind of like another way to say cult in a sense, less aggressive, right? But it's why we have many subcultures within Guild Wars 2. And it's healthy to have these subcultures, but there's really no united front because there's no culture of being united. And that is very difficult for us as content creators to do because the people in my community are a subculture. The people in Teapot's community are a subculture. We have overlap, of course, right? But there are people that watch me that don't watch Teapot. There are people that watch Teapot that don't watch me. There are people that watch you, Micah, that will never watch me or will never watch Teapot. There are people that watch Preston that will never watch me. That's just how it goes. So what you're saying is we would have to have a completely united front from every subculture to change the grand culture. And I just don't believe that that's our place or that we have the ability to do that, right? Okay, then explain.
Well, first off, I agree with you 100%. It does come from the top down. I'm not saying that we can just magic, because again, that goes back to why can't everybody just get along? Well, of course everybody's not going to get along. My point is, what can we do to get the normal people to speak up? That's it. What can we think of? I mean, as content creators, we are constantly trying to give, we talked about this earlier, we're constantly trying to give the community the creative ideas that we've come up with, things that we're passionate about. If we're passionate about take back Reddit, I'm not saying that just that is going to fix it. But I mean, goodness, we could reach out to Reddit moderators. We could try and talk to the people running the Reddit. Like, there are things that we can do if we care about the community to try and take things a step in the right direction. It's not lost on me that what I'm talking about is pretty big. It's not lost on me that we can't just magically flip a switch overnight and we can't just make all of our communities go to the Reddit. But I do think that there are steps that we can take to
Well, what do you
change
mean
the
by
fundamental
the
structure.
normal people? Are you suggesting, are you saying the people that have more neutral opinions? Because there's no incentive for them to really speak up. I mean, we can, as content creators, we can be like, hey, if you just like the game, like a 7 out of 10, go say that it's an okay game. I mean, that obviously is hyperbole, but like, I'm not sure what you mean exactly by normal players. Are you saying you're trying to make it less polarized? There's just the problem is that behavior that you're trying to push is almost it's almost moot, right? Like there's almost no point in trying to incentivize those people because there's just no motivation for them. You'd literally have to bribe them, right? You'd like somebody who's just like, yeah, I'm content. Those people are very unlikely to engage with the community in any sort of way, positive or negative, because they're just okay with it. They don't have any strong opinion one way or the other. The only reason people post on the forums typically or the forums, Reddit, not the only reason, but one big reason is they have motivation to do so. They're emotionally charged about something. They're upset about something. They love the game and are really passionate about it, or they hate the game because they've had some terrible experience or whatever. They go on the forums because they're super mad that they just spent $150 on a Bifrost and then Staff Mirage was nerfed, so they have to let everyone know that that's just not okay. I mean, who are the normal people? Like, who are you trying to get to communicate? I suppose I just don't really get it. Like, I don't think that there's a point in trying to make that happen because I think it's moot. Yeah.
So as far as the definition, the only definition I'm going with is the opposite of what we find on Reddit. All of us have admitted that Reddit is pretty toxic and that they sort of spit you out of their mouth, okay? So all I'm talking about is the people that aren't supercharged, okay? And you're sort of talking about the people who don't have the extreme opinions. We'll go with that since that's what you were referring to. My question is, if I had to guess, I don't know your guys' community super well, so I apologize if I mischaracterize or misrepresent. My guess is that Teapot probably has a private Discord, a Discord that he invites his community into, a Discord that most of his community probably participates in, or at least a large percentage of them. My guess is that you might have the same. My question is, why is it that people enjoy participating in a Discord, but they don't want to go to Reddit? Because the people in Discord are having a good time. They're chatting with each other. They're talking about the game. They're sharing builds. They're having a good time getting to know people. And it's a healthy environment usually. I mean, obviously we have to moderate these because, toxic people can come in anywhere. But the point is, if the culture on your own Discord is great and people are having a great time, why is it that the culture on Reddit can't be the same? And if Discord is succeeding where Reddit is failing, what can we learn from Discord that we can then apply to Reddit to change Reddit? And that's not our responsibility. We're content creators. But hey, if we care about the community, why can't we have that discussion and figure it out? That's the only point I'm making.
Well, I'm not sure if that's super true. I think a lot of people do talk on the Reddit, right? We're talking about a very specific issue here. I think the issue is that people won't get behind the game as a whole. They'll only get behind their specific section of the game, which is fair enough if you think about it. But I think we do need to encourage people to. I think a lot of this comes down to the fact that we want as many players as possible to try different areas of the game. The issue we're talking about, the way you fix it is simple, right? Like, you fix it by actually doing stuff in the game. Like, a really good example here, in my opinion, of the way you can reach people in the game is open world. I made a video talking about the meta train, right? I invented like the Omega meta train, the best meta train ever. And 3,000 people joined the Discord when I made that video. Like, you want to reach people? Yeah, you've got to approach, you have to approach them where they actually are. Don't say, hey, come and engage with us. We're hanging out in raids. No, go to them and engage with their content, right? And then you can say, hey, look, we're also doing this stuff over here. Come and try that. This is what we need to see a lot more of. Like, the way it is that the way I see it is that everyone tries to kind of be on the street corner saying, hey, come on in, roll up, right? But I don't think that works at all. I think you need to kind of get in there. You've got to actually show that you're willing to get in, get in the trenches, as it were, and put some effort in to show people that you're actually worth existing, right? I think this definitely applies to content creation as well. Like, if you're saying, hey, come and look how amazing I am, instead of actually engaging with things that people care about and topics that people are interested in, before you then start doing your own thing there as well and say, hey, come and welcome to my world. I think, yeah, of course you're going to get spat out, right? Because people don't give a shit. Why would they? It's all about the way that we communicate. It's funny, actually. I've got to roast the panel here a little bit. We're all talking, people need to communicate better. But I actually think that a lot of the content creators in Guild Wars 2 communicate extremely poorly with the broader community, because, again, we sit in our own private little space and we don't actually go to the main space and communicate in a way that's relatable to the people who are there, right? I guess the way I would describe it, right? I'll just do some very, very basic analogies here, but this is definitely true in the UK because like everyone loves soccer, football here. So much. It's like having like having like the scarf on and like the shirt, like the the jersey of like a football team, and then going into a bar full of people with the opposing team, right? Yeah, no shit. They're not gonna like get all excited about your team all of a sudden. No, you've got to meet people halfway, right? You've got to get in there and speak in a way that will make sense to people. So I think that on us, like from the Guild Wars 2 community, like content creator side of things, I think we've got to do a lot more. Right, we've got a lot more work to do in this regard with really focusing on communicating in a way that is understandable. Because even in the chat here, like I see this a lot. People are not getting the point here. Like, we aren't saying that like every single person on the subreddit is toxic. We're not saying that every single person in the game is toxic. It's an extreme minority of players here that engage in these behaviors. But the problem is that when it comes to certain topics in the game, you will only hear very extreme opinions one way or another. And then the thing is that if it gets upvoted, people will tend to believe it, right? And this propagates a lot of toxicity and misinformation about certain things. I mean, look, you'll see this all the time. And again, I hate to really like hammer home about the YouTube videos, but there's actually something that is really, this is a recent thing and it's actually important. And I'm really worried about the Streisand effect here to an extent, but it's actually got to the point where people actually think Sneb is toxic, right? Like, it's not a meme either, right? People actually say in a lot of videos now, and I feel bad with this. I'll admit this, guys. This was probably a mistake by me and my community. I think I'm at fault here, like, no joke. Because, yeah, we were kind of like memeing, right? And joking, oh, Sneb is so toxic. Sneb hates the game, right? But the thing is, people believe it, right? Like, people actually think this. This is an actual big opinion. And this is now quite harmful, right? Because Sneb wants to be a positive influence in the community. He wants to help with raids, and he wants to get a ArenaNet partner and all that kind of stuff. And now all of a sudden, right, there are actual people who don't listen to what Sneb says. They just go, yeah, you're toxic, right? You're toxic. And you can overcome this, and there's hope to repair this. So guys, like, seriously, I'm not like memeing here. Like, let's actually give Sneb the respect he deserves and share what he actually believes in and actually share his opinion. Don't like meme about it too much. A little bit of memery is fine in my bit. That's okay. But we got to keep it under wraps here a little bit. But that's not the point. I think you can actually make a recovery. I think, funnily enough, like, one of our other hosts has had quite the journey, right? There was certainly a time when people would go like, oh, Brazil's on this TeaTime. not watching. You know,
still
not going
happens.
anywhere near that. It's not as bad as it was, though. You can
It's
definitely
not as bad. No.
you can definitely repair this stuff, but it happens with a lot of people. You know, like whenever some of my content get posted to Reddit, there will be like one or two guys who say like, yeah, doesn't, you know, like this guy's a total shill. Fuck this guy, right? Like he's insanely toxic, right? Like, yeah, that happens, right? And I understand that this is kind of par for the course as a content creator, but I think it is something that we should really actively try and push back against, because you might say, well, how is this different from any other game? It's different from any other game because of the state of Guild Wars 2. To me, this is the big insight that people are missing. Like in WoW, honestly, who cares, right? It like if some people are saying that Asmongold's an asshole, honestly not that relevant, okay? Or if people are saying, yeah, fuck raids in WoW or Final Fantasy, not really that important because of the size of the community. In Guild Wars 2, we do not have this luxury. Misinformation about raids, about PvP, about world versus world, these are far more harmful because these communities are small, right? We can't have, I don't want to see anyone get turned off from trying this content because they read misinformation on the subreddit. We really can't afford that, right? In WoW, if like someone reads like a Reddit post, it's like, oh wow, raids are toxic. Who cares, right? You know, they've got millions of people playing that game. It's irrelevant if a few people kind of fall off and kind of get tripped over, right? And don't make it. In Guild Wars 2, this is very, very problematic because, I mean, to be frank, we need every raider, every PvPer we can get because it ain't looking good. You know, and this is really worrying. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about this is because we need to actually have a bit of a handle on this and be able to handle this communication and misinformation going into the subreddit. Why? Because ArenaNet is trying again with these game modes. They're going to try and hit world versus world hard with alliances. They're going to hit PvE hard, right, with strike missions, right? They're going to hit PvP with regular balance updates. But the thing is, if we can't get past this initial speed bump of getting people into this game mode, getting people to try it, right, and not getting kind of roadblocked by this illusion that all of these game modes are just like not worth your time, completely dead, a complete waste of time, then yeah, we're in real trouble. And then these new initiatives by ArenaNet will suffer the same fate. Hopefully that really explains why I care about this topic, why this is important. Why do we care what they think? We care what they think because we care about the game mode, right? Look, you've got to think of, seriously, look, I know this is a pretty complicated and abstract thing to think about, but if you care about the game, you do not want misinformation and, in a way, animosity and friction within the game. We've got enough dealing with the other MMOs. Look, team, this is so crazy. This is so fascinating because everyone here in the chat, every single one of you, right? When people say, look, when people mention Guild Wars 2 in a WoW stream or in a Final Fantasy, they're going to go, Omega, dead game, horrible game, no content, no raids, no anything, right? A terrible game, don't play it, right? And every single one of you would push back against that. You would all say, wow, that misinformation, guys, it's so bad, right? That misinformation is damaging the game. It's really hurting people. Why do we not care when it's in our community, right? It's the exact same thing. It's misinformation, but internal instead of external. So why are we calling out people outside our community, but not within? This is a really key concept, by the way. When you're trying to build a community or kind of a group that is pushing for a cause, you must police, right, your own side as well. It's arguably more important than worrying about people outside the group because you have way more control over it. Like, we have way more influence over the Guild Wars 2 community than the WoW community. And like Sneb says, yeah, we're not like the gods. That's not what we're trying to say here. We're not like, oh yes, we are the content creators, the overlords of Guild Wars 2. No, we are people within the community who care about the game, right? And that's you as well. And if you don't care, then you are essentially like, and this is going to sound very extreme, but ultimately this is true. If you don't care about this stuff, then you essentially don't care about these game modes surviving. I know that sounds crazy, but it's true because these things, these concepts, right, actively damage the scene, right? And not just the raid scene. all of the scene, right? This is bad for the game as a whole. If people see that Guild Wars 2 is very divided and there's a lot of animosity in the community, this screams that the player base isn't happy with the game. And if you're a new player, your alarm bells are ringing at that point. You don't want to commit to a game that's unstable, that's volatile, right? That's not the way people want to interact. They want to see something like the old school RuneScape subreddit, right? The StarCraft 2 subreddit, right? That's what people actually want to see. In terms of like the way it is. And yeah, not everyone goes through the Reddit, but this stuff bleeds through, guys. Go right now to Heart of the Mists in PvP and look at the map chat, guys. You will see negative comment, balance this, matchmaking this, bots that, hackers that. The entire narrative around PvP is overwhelmingly negative, right? I was running a fashion contest. We were dressing up, right? Playing with our characters in Lion's Arch, and in map chat, people were complaining about how bad raids are and how toxic they are and what a terrible community it is. This cannot exist, right? You cannot have that being the dominating narrative about a game mode and expect people to want to try it. This is why this is important, guys, right? You might go, oh, who cares if a few people are misinformed? Well, dude, if those are the only people speaking up, then that becomes true, right? About the game. It doesn't matter if it is or not. Like this, I know it's a really uncomfortable fact, but if no one else is speaking, then the difference between misinformation and fact blurs together and becomes non-existent. Right? Oh, this terrifies me because this happens in real life too. We're not going there. Don't worry. Like, don't panic. We're not talking about that. But it's really scary when people have this attitude because, again, if you allow misinformation to basically be the dominating voice, then it becomes real. But sorry, go ahead.
To answer the, who cares? Why does it matter? If somebody on the Reddit sees one thing and they believe it, then aren't they just dumb? Like people are kind of saying that. Well, I'll tell you why it matters. First impressions matter a lot. A lot. It is very hard to get somebody. New player acquisition is very, very expensive. This is true across industries. In restaurants, getting somebody to go to your restaurant is incredibly expensive, and keeping them is very important. If somebody has a bad experience at your restaurant, they will never come back. So you'll notice that if somebody was like, I didn't like my food, or they had whatever happened, their food took too long, the restaurant will do everything they can to make amends because they want you back. They want you to have a positive experience. In Guild Wars 2, if somebody is exposed to a bunch of negativity, they might go, I looked into it, maybe not for me, I'll go to the next MMO on the top 10 list, right? Like that's what's going to happen. It may not be perfectly rational, right? It may seem a little bit silly that somebody will take that at face value, but the reality is that their first impression of what we are and what we represent as a whole is very important. So if we are consistently negative in some way, then that's what people are going to get exposed to. That's what their first impression will be. First impressions matter. That's it.
Yes, you're absolutely right.
There's so much here.
Yeah. Brazil. Yeah, let's see, Brazil, get in, right? I want to get Brazil into the mix here. Unleash.
I think that there are just a lot of people on all sides they have so much to offer and they could be doing so much. And I think right now, with the game being kind of in a lull, like we've all talked about this. We talked about this on our own streams. We've talked about this in private. We talked about it in Discord chats here and there. Reddit talks about it. Everywhere talks about it. But the game is just in this really stale point where nothing has really happened in a while. And a lot of people are uncertain about what is going to happen. And they may not find much reason to play the game that much right now. There's just a big drought. There's a big lull, whatever you want to call it. And right now we have this opportunity where this may, in fact, be the only chance we get to ever address this. It is entirely possible that's the case. But we could just stop fucking around right now and stop fighting with each other. And, we could make an effort to create an infrastructure where we create content, we build networks and funnels where people can get into the in-game, and we work on repairing relationships and damage that we've done right now. Because I have made people so mad in the past about Guild Wars 2 and about, in-game PvE dungeons that they literally threatened to kill me on the official forums. That's how mad I've made people. Like, I don't know that particular individual creator is around anymore, but like I've made some people mad, and like I've done some damage to the community. We chased Nemesis off, and Nemesis could have been a resource. I don't know, but we could kind of do our best to repair some of the damage that's been done. Like the Sneb is toxic meme, we could try to get that resolved. That's something that's horrifying that's kind of popped up, because look at that. It's just something else that we have to undo. I think now it has to happen now, or there's not a chance going forward, because if we keep the same mentality or it gets worse, the misinformation spread and people being reclusive and keeping themselves and gatekeeping new players out of their game mode, then what happens when the expansion comes out? When the expansion comes out and someone goes into map chat in Lion's Arch and they haven't played since launch, they haven't played since Path of Fire came out, or maybe it's the first time they've ever bought the game, and people are saying raids are dead. Strikes are dead. Strikes are dead on arrival. Strikes are dead. Strikes are horrible. Elitists keep me out of strike missions. What's going to happen? Like, we got to... I don't even know how to compile my thoughts on all this, because there's just so much shit in my head going crazy over it, but there's not much happening right now at the moment. Maybe it's a good time to look into repairing that and making things more friendly for new players that are about to come in, because people are going to come in for End of Dragons. People are going to come back to the game for End of Dragons. People that stopped playing the game years ago are going to come back to give End of Dragons a try. There are people that pre-ordered already. People are going to spend money. They're going to come in. Like, how do we as a community and as creators, how can we do a better job to make their experience better and make them want to continue coming back? And like I did a bad job of this like half an hour ago, where I blew up on one up. Lol. Here we are talking about toxic community, and I exploded on him and called him a dumb, incompetent fuck. Like, I shouldn't have done that. I got charged because like I saw hypocrisy, what I perceived as hypocrisy, and I got really angry because, like, me as a creator, I've put a lot of time into doing things that I thought were interesting and valuable, and other people perceive them as interesting and valuable, and I got a following because of that. And then you have people that come in and don't listen to you, and they effectively say, haha, I didn't listen to anything you said. Everything you did is not interesting and it's not valuable. Here's your dislike, go away. And it's frustrating, because like I'm fine with people not caring about what I do, not being interested in the content that I make, or thinking that it's bad or dumb. I don't care. If you don't like me, that's fine. Like, that's okay. There's going to be something else that you like somewhere, but if I'm trying to do something good, then, and this goes for Sneb, this goes for Teapot, this goes for Micah, this goes for Kroof, Jebro, Munklock, all the creators out there. Like, if you don't like what they're doing, that's okay. That's fine. But let's not try to ruin what they're doing and make the experience sour for other people coming in. And like, if people want to gravitate towards that and people want to watch their content, like, who gives a fuck? There's a lot of talk in the raid community about how Muckluck's raid guides are bad and they don't teach you how to raid. Yeah, but they might be helpful to someone, and maybe someone likes his presentation, and maybe that gets them into raiding, and maybe that gets more people into the game mode, or maybe they say, oh damn, that looks kind of fun, maybe I'll try strike missions, and strikes come out. But don't run around closing doors because you don't like the doors. Like, we're trying to do the same thing. We're trying to help people. Fuck. I'm turning into word salad right now. Turning into word vomit. Someone else needs to talk because I'm fucking losing my mind. Do it, Micah. Go.
I love word salad.
Yeah.
It's my favorite dish. I eat it daily. That's my insight. I actually wanted to go back. This was a while ago now, but I think it's imperative that we get this straight. MightyTeapot mentioned this. UK football is absolutely correct. There is no reason to call American football when one random play out of nowhere involves actually kicking the ball, whereas UK football is actually constantly kicking the ball. So I just want I don't know. There was some tension in the room. I was kind of judging it off of you guys, and I felt like we really had to get that straight. That's something that I don't know if I can continue with the podcast unless we nail that down right here. So I just wanted to bring that up, but go ahead. You guys take the floor.
Damn.
I'm not even entirely sure how to follow up from this. Like, you know, it's I've got to say, it does really interest me. Like, some people, you know, I've been reading the chat like during this, and people say, oh, you know, like this, you know, this isn't important, like this is irrelevant. It's very obviously is, because of how heated everyone is getting in the chat, right? There's a lot of disagreement going on here, and a lot of ideas that are being spread about this. So I'm really glad we brought this up. You know, I think that this is a big problem. What Brazil was talking about with moving into the expansion, I think, is absolutely true. We need to make sure that there are these pathways into these game modes. Guild Wars 2 is going to go on with or without these kind of more hardcore game modes, but I think this really kind of is it. You know, looking at stuff like World vs. World, looking at stuff like PvP, looking at you know, endgame PvE content, right? This stuff has been tried a lot. ArenaNet's been trying a lot of formulas over the years. They've been really going at it, trying to make some of this stuff work. And I do genuinely believe that this isn't all on ArenaNet. I mean, Brazil talking about there being a lot of content. This is definitely true. And I think it does contribute to players getting very, very, you know, stressed out, very antsy, a little bit, you know, a little bit defensive of you know, their patch of the game, for sure. I think that is true. I think historically this has been true. And why they're, you know, I mean, this goes all the way back to the PvP scene. Right, you know, I'm sure a lot of you here remember this with Pro League, right, and the professional PvP. When this stuff did get posted on the forums and to the subreddit, a lot of the comments would be, "This is a complete waste of money. Why is ArenaNet doing this? Why are they investing resources?" And this was because it was perceived that this effort from ArenaNet and this investment was essentially detracting away from other areas of the game. This kind of mentality is ridiculously poisonous, right? Like, this is. It's not why PvP, you know, why PvP, they stopped doing it. They just didn't want to do it anymore. It just wasn't getting the return on investment, I guess, that they were looking to get from PvP. But it certainly contributes to a pretty bad feeling in the community. And again, animosity, because PvP players will read that, right? And go like, holy shit, wow, like these people hate us, right? Like, what the hell is going on here? Like, what is that? Like, this kind of division is not good, specifically when you're trying to actually kind of breathe some new life into the game. I think people need to have a bit of a reality check where Guild Wars 2 actually is. People have forgotten that Guild Wars 2 is in trouble. Like, we are not, you know, having a good time right now. Like, Icebrood Saga basically got cancelled halfway through because a bunch of the studio just got the chop, right? They had to cancel all of their unannounced projects that they were working on, like other, you know, MMOs, like other types of games they were working on. ArenaNet in Guild Wars 2 is not as secure as you might expect. End of Dragons needs to work, and a lot of the things with the expansion coming out and the next year or 2 years with Guild Wars 2, yeah, this is a big deal. This is very important, what happens next. And I don't think it's all on ArenaNet. I think a lot of it is their game after all. You know, I can't go over there and just fix it all. That's not what we're pretending to do here. But I think that we as the community need to play ball. And that means me, that means the hosts here, and it means you guys as well. Yeah, we need to play ball here a little bit, 100%, right? And there is a little bit of like, oh, you know, this isn't a big deal. This is not a big problem. Guys, wake up and understand where we are. We are not Final Fantasy here. We are not a Realm Reborn. We are not even WoW. And WoW is kind of getting a kicking right now as well, for very good reasons, of course. Like, Shadowlands, not great. Blizzard, also not great. Okay? But we aren't there. Guild Wars 2 is certainly top 5, top 10 MMO, whatever. Obviously, it's very hard to look at metrics and figure out exactly what's going on there. But we are not in a position where we can not care about this stuff, right? And I know I'm taking this very seriously, and this is a video game. I actually really like this video game, okay? Okay, you know, I'm a big Guild Wars 2 fan. I got 20k hours in. I like it a lot. I actually want it to do really well. And particularly the endgame stuff. I want World versus World to do really well. I want raids or strike missions to do really well. I want PvP to do really well. And trust me, I'm really in deep in the community. In my opinion, I have a very good vantage point with what to, with which I can almost diagnose the state of the game in a way. And trust me, we are on thin ice right now, particularly in PvP. I am genuinely worried about PvP. I think there is a very significant possibility that it just dies, right? If things don't get it better in PvP, specifically around the narrative, this again is another really big example. I know that a lot of people want to hear examples. Like, what are you talking about, Teapot? Like, what are you talking about? This is exactly what I'm talking about. Again, if you go to Harder Than This, you're going to see overwhelmingly negative dialogue. If you talk about PvP on the Reddit, on the forums, it's run by win traders. It's completely rigged. Ranked means nothing. Rating means nothing. The tournaments are all arranged and sold. This is just flat misinformation, right? Like, it's just wrong. And this attitude is what kills and poisons communities. I'm sorry, it's just true, right? And you might not care about PvP. That's fine, okay? I respect that. It's not for everyone. But don't propagate misinformation, and don't pretend that it's like, oh, it doesn't matter. No, it does. And it certainly matters to those who actually care about that game mode. And the same is true in raids, right? Like, in the raid community and in the strike community, we cannot afford to have stuff like this because, again, we are on thin ice. Raids, think about it. Look, they're already filling in the grave, guys, right? Raids, the grave was dug, we're lying down in it, and the soil is coming over, right? Okay, like, it's about to fill up again, right? Look, we can't afford to have any of this stuff going on because we've got 1 foot in the grave already. We're in trouble with this stuff. We really are. And strike missions will be the same, right? The Hug on jaded players. I hope you're not talking about me. Okay, I don't want to debate the chat too much, but no, trust me, I'm actually enjoying the game a lot right now. I'm just saying that we need to be actually aware of the situation. There's this tendency in MMO communities to kind of pretend that everything is all right, but sometimes it isn't. And saying that it isn't, by the way, is not an indictment of the game. People tend to conflate these things together. They'll say, oh, you're saying the game is in a bad spot or is in a tough spot. Does that mean you hate Guild Wars 2? No, those two statements are completely unrelated. That's not even the same category of remark. Okay? I'm saying that I really like the game, but it's got problems and the scene is in a tough spot and it's going to be hard to recover from this, to get this back. Guys, go over to it, right? It's on the table.github.io. Go and look at that. It's been nearly 1,000 days since a raid wing, 500 days since a strike mission, 250 days since any content in the game. Yikes. This is a problem. And that's why we need to talk about solutions. That is why we need to take action here and really try and get some outreach going. So solutions, well, my attempt is Hardstuck, right? Like, that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to build this thing that I think we need, this very whole game oriented, community oriented thing where loads of players can kind of come together and try and interact. Like, that's what I want to do. That's the goal, right? And hopefully
on a smaller scale, my thing is trying to help people get into raids on NA that otherwise wouldn't be able to. Everyone has like some sort of solution to the problem. They're trying to affect the community in a positive way in some way. And I suppose that's why we were so we talked about content creators being important and how the perception of content creators in the greater Guild Wars 2 community is kind of strange. And it's because in a drought of content, the content creators are essentially the ones that make the content. Right? When there's no new storyline, Teapot getting the world record for a full wing 1-7 raid clear, that's the content, right? And we can celebrate that. Even if you don't love raids, like, come on, like I'm never gonna be a speed clear, right? But I watched Teapot do that and I'm like, wow, that took a lot of effort, right? That's kind of cool. Or I watched Preston do a raw the other day and even took me through it. And I was like, I don't know anything about this, but wow, this is impressive. He got through this really fast. I've watched World versus World streamers. I don't World versus World at all. And I've watched them and been like, wow, they're building a community here. They're trying to make the game a better place. And this is kind of neat, even if I don't fully understand. PvP, I watch lots of people that do PvP. I've watched Naru, I've watched Shorts, I watch Boyce, I watch all these folks that PvP, and I learn a lot from them. I don't engage very strongly in PvP. I don't do tournaments and stuff, but hey, like everyone has kind of their own way of impacting the community in some positive way, and we ought to encourage that and celebrate that. And if a new player comes into the game and they're like, hey, I'm a content creator, this is brand spanking new to me, I want to make a big impact, we shouldn't be like, Omega lol, you suck at the game, you shouldn't help. There's actually like, I in my head I'm thinking of a couple content creators that came in and started trying to make like build guides and stuff, and people roasted them so hard they moved on to a different game. Because they just didn't think that they could do it, right? Like they thought that they would always have that reception.
Well, okay, let me actually kind of get in there. Okay, you know what? Ooh, Sneb, I'm gonna get toxic. I'm gonna draw the fire from you, my dude. You better be ready.
Sure. Yeah, I'm ready.
Those build guides were probably not good.
So the one that I actually watched one to see. And there was a little bit of information in there that wasn't exactly perfect, that wasn't raid rotation perfect. And people just, they hooked onto that one thing and they ran with it, right? And that, expecting people to be perfect is a little bit unfair, I think. It's one of the reasons why I'm not going to ever make like rotation guides or anything, because I would never do it perfect and I'd get roasted super hard. And I also, it's not really my thing. So I guess what I'm saying is I feel like it's okay to be like, hey, just so people know, if you want to be even more efficient, do this. But to be like, dude, you know nothing about the game. You suck at making these videos. Why are you even doing this? And obviously that's a minority, right? But like, that's what they see, right? They go in and they're excited about this thing, and then suddenly the community's like, it's not good enough, right? It's not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And if that's the feedback they receive, they start to believe it. And I can empathize with that. I feel like that's a tough thing to swallow. It's something you have to learn to handle as a content creator. You have to learn to take the hits and keep on moving. But I guess what I'm trying to express is that if we ever do have like new content creators, we should always be nice to them, because they're doing us a favor. They're trying to be positive about the game. They're trying to share it with their friends. And if we shut them down, and I would love to hear Micah's opinion on this, if we shut them down and try to cancel them in a sense, then we have no new blood in the game. And that's a big shame, because that affects a lot of parts of the game.
Yeah, I agree. That made me think of a thought that I had earlier. There's kind of there's almost a disconnect between content creators and players. Really, it's in any game, but there are a lot of this is kind of addressing a little bit of MightyTeapot's sort of devil's advocate there. Well, what if the build guide is bad? I think I agree with Snebs. You said this earlier about content creators being the lifeblood of games. I think it absolutely is. But I also think that there are a lot of content creators who are out there who legitimately are just trying to get clicks and views. Who are just, they come into the game and they sort of see the community and say, ooh, maybe I can, do X, Y, and Z to get people to watch my stuff. And they just want the fame or whatever it is. But I also think there's a lot of great content creators who genuinely want to come into the community and offer something valuable to the community. And it's a similar conundrum as with the players, where you have sort of the toxic individuals and then the non-toxic ones. Then you sort of have the toxic content creators and the non-toxic ones. And so it can be kind of difficult, because it's like, we want to support here's the problem. We can't create a standard. We can't make a sweeping statement and say all content creators are toxic, which is presumably maybe what a lot of people on Reddit do. But we also can't say, all the players are toxic. So it takes some discernment. But I absolutely agree with that in terms of like finding these content creators who are actually trying to help the community. And I think that could go a long way for if you are looking at a build guide and you see someone who is passionate about the game and they were like, yo, this build's OP. Like, I was running this the other day with my friends and we were killing it, bro. I got to make this guide. And if they hop up on YouTube and they're like, yo, this is what I did, we were shredding it. And you're like, okay, you missed this, you missed that. If you can sort of discern what the heart of the person is, And if it's, I'm passionate about Guild Wars 2, I love this game and I want to give you guys a gift because I'm balling out and I want you guys to ball out. If that's actually what it is, then it's like, yeah, we need to support those people. But it takes some discernment because there are going to be those people who have a crappy build. And their mentality is like, well, I've been running this. I guess I'll make a video and try and get some views. Maybe, people love build guides. Let me make a build guide video. And so they'll throw that out there. So I do think that there's some discernment required with that. That's not to disagree. I agree 100%.
I don't think people do that as much in Guild Wars 2. I mean, look, if you're trying
to make build.
No. Let me clarify. I don't think that many people go into Guild Wars 2 thinking I'm gonna be a famous content creator. Like I don't think many people do that because the community is really small. Like it's pretty niche. That said, there are people that are like, I'm just gonna get as many clicks on this video as I can, right? And so that does occur. To clarify my point, make it very clear. I agree, Micah. If somebody's video and with Teapot, I think if somebody's spreading, like, if the video is saying that you need to only play core necromancer with minions, and that if you go into that, if you make this build, and full soldiers, by the way, if you take that and you go full minion mancer build and you go into Zera, that you will be able to immediately kill the boss. Like if somebody's spreading misinformation or it's not quite correct, it's okay to be like, hey, I'm not so sure that this is right. Maybe look at this. It's okay to redirect a little bit. What's not okay is to squash them, right? To just be like, dude, you suck. Like, I hate you. Like, what are you doing? Like, I guess there's a nice way to, like, a new excited person who doesn't really know what they're doing, and maybe they make a few mistakes in their guide. They're trying to promote the community. They're trying to help out in a sense. They're just excited about the game. They're passionate about it. You don't need to squash that passion. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
you obviously need to address when people are like spreading wicked bad information. Because if somebody's telling you how to do a raid boss and they're telling you all the wrong way to do a mechanic, then that video goes viral. Suddenly you've got everybody heading into the raid and failing and not knowing why they failed. And so, of course, you want to moderate that. With regards to people that are like super clickbaity and stuff, I think that's. I mean, people do that a lot in social media content because it works. Yeah, they just do it. I'm not super concerned about that per se, and I really don't think that a lot of people are super self-interested with a lot of the content that they make for Guild Wars 2 because, hey, surprise, 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 surprise. If you want to be rich and famous, playing Guild Wars 2 is probably not the best way to go about doing that. So,
you know what? Oh, sorry. Yeah. You go, Brazos. You go.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say I have some stuff to add to this. So, believe you me, back in 2013, 2014, when dungeons were alive and popping, and that was the in-game content. If somebody posted a build video that was bad, we all knew about it. One person would find it. We had people that would like sit on the official forums and just on Guild Wars 2 Guru and would just wait for someone to post a build that was bad or that was inefficient or whatever, and we would share it. And we all knew, and we would all laugh at it. We would all think it was funny. And we go and post about it, and we would just take it and run, and we thought it was hilarious because it was amusing to us that people hadn't figured the game out. But now, that's a big problem. I look at that and think, fuck, that was horrible. That was poisonous that we would do that. Because if you're in a position, if you are a really good raider, you have a really good raid group, you're in a really good guild, and you're in a position where you have in-depth knowledge of the game and why things happen. You can explain like the mob AI, like something very nuanced, like when you're pushing the orb on Keep Construct, the seekers that chase it and grab it, like don't feel pressured because they have to actually stop and cast the attack that grabs the orb, just keep going. If they're this close to you but they don't stop, stuff like that. Little nuanced things that nobody's going to know about. If you're in a position where you have all this deep knowledge, don't get your whole guild and don't get your group and don't make fun of it and shit on it in the comments and chase the content creator away. Say, hey, my guild likes PvE too. This is my name. These are my credentials. You want to come in a raid with us so we can show you some stuff? And we really like what you do. I'm not very comfortable making a video and presenting myself because I don't like my voice or I don't know how to edit, whatever. But you seem to be comfortable being a content creator. Let's help you out. What can we do to get you better information so you can make version 2.0 of your guide and have really good information on it? Can we do something like that? Can we if we're in a position where we actually understand the ability, we understand why the build is dumb or bad. We don't just say, oh, this build's dumb, this build sucks. We understand mechanically at a very deep level what the problem is. Can we point that out? Can we explain it? And can we maybe step up and offer some more in-depth help with the actual content? Can we help them provide better content? Or if we just want to do it ourselves, can we just go make a video? Can we go make a guide? What do you, Teapot, you look like you're about to die. What's going on?
Okay. I have to push back against this a little bit because I think this is wrong. I actually think everyone here is wrong. If you are gonna put yourself out on the internet, you are essentially signing up for this. And yes, I agree. It would be nice if we all lived in a utopian world where we would just kind of, oh, that's a little mistake there, buddy. You might want to fix that. Yeah, sure. That would be really nice, but it's not going to happen. I really don't like moving the responsibility of making content, right? Oh, and like the responsibility of handling misinformation away from the person who creates that. If you make a build guide that is wrong, that is on you, right? And if people then tell you that you're wrong, even in a maybe impolite way, I kind of think that is actually on you. Yeah. Yeah, I really don't like moving the responsibility away from the creator. Like a lot of the issues we're talking about here, certainly with regards to content creation, is, you know what? I'm going to get toxic. Let's do it. I think most content in Guild Wars 2 is not good. I think that's partially because there isn't a financial motive. In fact, I think it's very likely because, again, you know, this is not where you can make a lot of money. Funnily enough, though, I actually disagree with that too. I think Guild Wars 2 is literally one of the best games to start out with if you're a content creator. Why? Because there is a high demand for content creation and a very low supply. I would say that Guild Wars 2 is literally the perfect game to start streaming in because not many people stream the game and most people don't do anything interesting. All they do is like just play the game like while not talking. Right? That's most streams in Guild Wars 2. You can, if you're even a tiny bit interesting, you will get up to the top of the Twitch directory. It will happen and it will be easy as well. If you make good content about on YouTube, specifically build guides, actually, you will get views. It will happen as long as that content is good and you handle yourself well. The opportunity is there. It just requires a lot of effort. Like the Guild Wars 2 is a hard game, has like a high skill floor. This causes a lot of people who make content to make a lot of mistakes and make stuff. But I'm sorry, all I've got to say is get good, right? People should be nicer. I 100% agree. I think there is a lot of derision in the community. There's one particular thing that I find incredibly distasteful, actually. There was a new player who joined the scene a long time ago. They don't actually play the game anymore, and they were learning the game. They were learning how to, learning how to raid specifically. And to this day, the top clip on that Twitch channel is literally a clip that was passed around popular raid discords where they just made fun of this player for basically not being very good because they'd been playing for like a week, right? That is the top clip on that channel. And to be frank, that actually upsets me. I would even go as far as say that disgusts me, right? With how, how disrespectful that really is, like given the context of the clip there as well. Not a big fan whatsoever of that kind of stuff. Yeah, I agree. People should definitely be nicer. answer, but you have to play around this. Like you can wish upon a star. This kind of goes back to my overall philosophy of how we should fix this. You can say, oh, wouldn't it be nice if everyone just listened to us and like came and, tried our area of the game? No, you have to play around the way people behave. Like people are very predictable with how they're going to react and how they're going to engage with stuff. And you as a content creator, we as community members need to play around that. If we aren't willing to play around that, then you're going to lose the game. It's just like doing the clickbait stuff, right? If you don't play this, you're essentially at a disadvantage. It's kind of shitty, right? But what else are you going to do? Like, you can either play the game or lose, right? And I know that sounds like insanely, like really, really scuffed, but this is just the nature of reality, right? If you aren't willing to play, well, then you're not even in the game, right? And yeah, you just have to deal with this. Like, there are certain facts of the way social media is and the way in-game communities are and the way people react to stuff, specifically when it comes to like bad information in a game that people know a lot about. Yeah, it's not good. And the other real problem is, if you're making a build guide, okay, then do some fucking research. Right? If you make, let's talk about Firebrand, for example. Like, everyone loves Guardian, right? If you make a Firebrand guide, great. Make sure everything in it is correct. How do you do that? Very easy. Go and look at other people play this. Go and find someone else playing it and look at what they're doing. Learn how to play it before you
I
make
knew
it.
that was coming. I knew that was coming.
It's not very easy, Teapot.
You're wrong. No. This is your argument. You say this all the time. What in-game metric did they have to know that their build is bad?
Well, the thing is, if you're
in raid and they play Firebrand,
perfect. Come on, like that's ridiculous.
No, it is absolutely not. If you are a content creator, you are expected to go above and beyond, right? No, I will die on this hill 100%. Okay,
there's no way to know that it's going to be perfect, right? Like, imagine you make one mistake in your rotation that reduces your DPS by like 500. Somebody's going to be like, hey, actually, your build isn't exactly perfect because you're not doing the rotation this way. Or if you change one trait because it's situational or whatever, everyone's gonna glom onto that. If you don't give everyone absolutely all the information, and how are you really? I feel like it's an unfair expectation to be like, everything has to be perfect. Of course, I agree with you. You should be held to a higher standard. You should do your research. You should do everything you can. Yep. But to say that a content creator is going to be like, I don't feel like there's any perfect video out there.
No one's gonna. Thing is, though, no one's gonna crucify you for like missing 1k DPS. People don't care about that. People care about people showing bad ability usage and bad advice, which is incredibly prevalent in a huge amount of Guild Wars 2 content. Most raid guides about Guild Wars 2 are wrong. Like, it's not even like not quite right. They are actively wrong with a lot of this stuff. A lot of build guides out there, again, aren't just not perfect with a few mistakes. Trust me, like, my build guides have got plenty of mistakes, and then that's fine, right? Like, I'm like, fuck. Shouldn't have left that in, didn't catch that, should have edited that, right? But, they're like 95, 98% correct, right? So it's, whatever, like, it's not the end of the world. No one's going to give me a hard time for that, right? When I make videos like that. But yeah, if like 75% of it was right and 25% of it was wrong, yeah, that's a problem. Like, that is definitely the thing. If you're going to be a content creator, yeah, you've got to hold yourself highly and you've got to make good content, right? Otherwise, you are going to get a negative response. That is reality. I know that sucks, but that is how it works. Like, if you want to get somewhere and get a positive reaction, you need to cover all your bases. Is it fair? No. I actually agree with you guys. I don't think we even disagree here. I agree it is unfair if you want to look at it like that, but that is the way it is, and that will certainly never change. And honestly, I don't even think it should change. I think we should absolutely be pushing creators to make their content as accurate and as good as possible in every area, right? Like, not just gaming, not just Guild Wars 2. Yeah, if you make a video, you should make it right. You should do your research. If you're like a new player,
but that's not easy. That is not easy to do.
Yes.
So don't suggest that it is, right? It's not easy to do. Guild Wars 2 is actually kind of complicated, right? Like, going and figuring out these little nuances in a build or understanding all of these little nitty-gritty things is actually, it takes a lot of effort. A lot. Here's a random thing. I've been training Wing 1 forever. Yesterday, I was teaching somebody about Veil Guardian. And I paused. They said, who aggroes the Seekers? And I paused for a moment because I remember one time a long time ago somebody told me, and I forgot. I don't remember. I've been teaching people for ages about that, and I don't remember how this. And I figured out. So I think they told me it's random, right? It randomly selects people, and it goes. And then the blues. They said, where do the blues spawn? And I was like, oh, they spawn under people's feet. And I forgot that it's proximity based. I forgot that the 5 people closest to Veil Guardian, that's where the blue thing spawns underneath them. If you don't put that in a raid guide, you could get eviscerated. But figuring that out, you have to delve pretty deep. You have to go and find the right people who know. Some guides may not include that. So you might be looking at other people's guides and they don't include some of that information. It actually, doing the research and figuring out the little things that actually make a pretty big difference in a guide is hard work. And so I don't want it to be suggested that it's easy to do that. That's all. I think that it's fair to be critical if people aren't willing to put in the work, but to suggest that it's easy is not true.
Yeah. Okay. No, I this is my bad. I use easy in a slightly different way than basically everyone does. I shouldn't do this, to be honest. When I say easy, I mean the step. You just walk in a straight line and you'll get there, right? Figuring out what you need to do, in my opinion, is not difficult. You just need to do research. Yeah, obviously you have to do a lot of effort, but I don't really consider effort and easy to be mutually exclusive. I think there are plenty of easy things that can require a lot of effort, but I know that's a weird definition. I shouldn't use it that way. When I say easy, I mean that if you actually look, it's all there. It's not super obfuscated, in my opinion, with the way it works. And if you're going to make a guide, yeah, you should be prepared to do that. Like, if you aren't willing to kind of do this type of research and kind of get into it and get involved, like get in these discords and do some research, then you shouldn't be making a guide.
The process is simple. The point A to point B is simple. Like, you just need to do this. But the doing this part actually requires quite a bit of effort, can be quite time consuming, maybe difficult, depending on what it is.
Yes. The chat is probably like simple is the correct word. Like, it's a simple process. You just have to grind. And yeah, it's hard. It's real hard to do it. And you might completely fail miserably, right? But I don't know. Okay. Oh no.
I disagree with you.
I
disagree with you.
Yeah. I mean,
I actually do disagree.
Go, bring the juice.
So whenever I started creating content ages ago, I wanted to do it because I thought, damn, I can do this content. I like doing this content. I can make a video about this and help other people also do the content. Guess what the build videos were about? They were about shout heal, soldiers, warrior, soldiers, guardian, and dungeons. Like LOL meta ages ago. But like, yeah, that information was bad because we figured out what Berserker's armor was, and then it had just evolved from there. But being a content creator isn't about just all of a sudden you put out the perfect content and people will come watch you. Being a content creator is about learning and growing and developing useful skills, learning how to present yourself. Like, if there's someone that is new to gaming, they're new to editing, they're new to recording, they're new to all this stuff, and they want to do it, the answer shouldn't be that their first shot isn't perfect, crucify them, and it's their fault. The answer, this bothers me so much because...
Isn't this like what happened to Micah?
where would I have gotten with photography or with editing or with content creation if people had just immediately come in and shit on me and told me that I was horrible and bad and that I should never try it again? And get good first. Do your research, buddy. Well, I did my no. I did my research. I did my research. I played the game a lot. I went into dungeons and pugs. I played a build. I was successful farming a raw tokens and a raw armor, and it got me through the game just fine. And I thought, shit, I'll post a written guide. Shit, I'll make a video. I could do all this stuff. And guess what? You talk about this all the time too. If someone goes into, they get their foot in the door of the raids. I want to be a content creator. I want to learn raids. I'm going to go in. I'm going to play a build. I'm going to learn a little bit. I'm going to do the content. And now I feel comfortable. I've raided 20 times. I've killed Veil Guardian 20 times. In my sword hollow smith with diviner's runes or diviner's armor and elixirs works, I'm going to make a build about it. It's worked for me. I've been successful. There aren't any in-game tools that tell me my DPS There aren't any in-game tools that measure me with the top guilds or anything like that. That's all external. If you want to, you have to go out of the game to find that stuff.
Content creation is external, though.
I mean,
But what if someone's trying, if they're making an effort, if they want to develop skills that I learned skills that I took from making meme Guild Wars 2 videos to doing stuff in the real world, to working for design studios, to doing photography for car dealerships. This is all shit that, like, because my experience at the very beginning wasn't horrible, because people that get crucified, like, because they make a raid video and it's not perfect and it's the first time that they ever tried it and you eat them alive over it, what else are you doing to the potential for the rest of their life if you shut that door in their face and and you know what, like, if that's how the world works and that's how it is, and like, fine. If that's just the way it is, I go outside in Dallas and I take pictures of homeless people and I talk to them. These people, they haven't changed their clothes in 2 weeks. They shit on themselves and they don't have toilet paper. Like, the world's pretty fucking bad. The world's pretty fucking hateful. Like, that's fine if that's the way it is, but I'm not going to stop trying to help people despite that.
So,
I don't think other people should either.
Yeah, I really want to respond to it. And look, I don't think we disagree nearly as much as you think. When I'm talking about videos that aren't good, I'm not talking about videos that aren't perfect, right? For example, if someone makes like we can do the Renegade, right? Like the Renegade video, they make a build guide about Renegade and they hit a lot of the key points. For example, they know what all of their skills do, right? They know, what their good damaging abilities are. They upkeep alacrity correctly, right? They know their job. No one's going to give them shit. Even if it doesn't go into, you can use the fractal action key and use star 5 at the same time for a mega CC. This is the perfect burst opener. No one's going to give you a hard time for that. I'm talking about things like actively aren't good, right? Stuff like you aren't maintaining your alacrity. You don't know your role. You don't know what your abilities do, right? You aren't really doing a lot of damage. You've got camera shake on. You're playing like with keyboard turning and skill clicking, right? Like, no, but seriously, this is
like camera shake.
You just called out Micah though.
Yeah. Okay.
I left on camera shake for years.
Yeah.
And I literally had some PvP guides and someone was like, why the heck do you have camera shake on? And I was like, I don't know. It doesn't bother me.
You have look, I actually commented on this when I was talking okay, remember how I said the first 12 minutes I was like emotionally charged by your video and was kind of annoyed? I think I made this exact comment. I was like, he's saying that people in PvP are mean to him and like toxic, but he's playing with camera shake on.
That was old footage, though. I'm better now. I got better.
Yeah. Well, that context important.
And no, the difference is
if it's.
Oh yeah, sorry. Go ahead. Yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say I've kind of been just sitting here listening. I think we have gone way down into the weeds a little bit, and I think we're sort of going deeper and deeper into like, well, no, but my point is this. I think that we have two different discussions that are taking place here. One is how do we treat content creators? Two is, are content creators responsible for what they make? I think those are two different discussions. They're related, of course, but I think they're different because on the one hand, we're kind of saying, hey, have a soul, right? And again, that goes back to the philosophical discussion of why can't we all just get along? And I think it's great for us to continue to encourage people, hey, show some kindness, show some love. Kind of what you were saying, Brazil, of like, don't just treat people like garbage. But at the same time, I think that's a different conversation from what MightyTeapot is saying. What MightyTeapot's trying to say is we're responsible for what we make. It's our job to go the extra mile. We can't just put out some crap and have everyone forgive us for it. Like we're held to a higher standard, and we should hold ourselves to a higher standard. And that's an age-old discussion. You can get into World of Warcraft, and there was sort of for a long time. I'm not a big World of Warcraft guy, but I keep tabs on the game. So correct me if I mess something up, but. To my understanding, for a long time with World of Warcraft, there was kind of this, I don't want to raid because I'm going to get treated like garbage, even if it's my first time, right? And so it's like, but at the same time, so people would fight against that. Oh, we shouldn't treat these new guys like this. But what's the reality of the situation? The reality of the situation is that when you show up to these raids and you're being held to a high in the sky standard, what happens with you? You get really freaking good, really freaking quick. Because you go in and you get flamed and you're like, oh my gosh, this experience was terrible, but I want to raid more, so I'm going to get good at the game, and I'm going to go back in and I'm going to show these guys that I can raid with them. And so it's kind of that, and honestly, this is kind of what I said earlier. This is why you have to have some discernment. When you look at a content creator and they put out a video, there's a difference. This is what you were just saying, Teapot. There's a difference between a good video with some mistakes, an educational video with some mistakes, and a bad video full of misinformation with some good things in it. There's a complete difference there. And I think, Teapot, what you're saying is we need to hold ourselves to high standards. We can't just expect the community to say, well, he messed up half of that crap, but whatever, he tried. Like, there are no participation trophies. We have to succeed. And that's really all there is. Well, there is in Guild Wars 2, yeah. but you see what I'm saying? But at the same time, again, just to sort of reiterate, that's not in contradiction with saying, hey guys, can we calm down a little bit? Can we not be so toxic? Can we actually look at the video and analyze it and say, is this an excellent video? Is this beneficial? And then just say, hey man, I want to, you mentioned something, Snebs, about the raid spawning at your feet. I don't know crap about that, by the way, but I'm gonna assume all of that is legit. If somebody was just to point out in the comments, hey, actually, it's not this, it's that, but otherwise great video, I think we can all agree that's the most healthy way to do that. But at the same time, this is where Snebs goes as a content creator. Thank you for that. Let me pin that at the top. And next time I make a guide video, maybe you missed 4 or 5 things. Well, then you can say, okay, updated guide video. Let me put this out. Hey guys, y'all mentioned a few things I messed up. Here's an updated guide video. And, so that way your content is getting better, but then at the same time, maybe the community isn't, so toxic. Hopefully that made sense. But yeah, I think it's 2 different discussions here. And I don't think they're conflicting with each other. I think it's part of the same thing.
Yeah. I think that's what I was trying to get at. That was a fantastic summary there, Micah. Appreciate it. You saved my ass there from getting destroyed by Brazil, and not in the good way. But yeah. But yeah, for sure. Yeah, we should. I would absolutely encourage people to not say, worst video ever, quit the game, uninstall, fucking get out of here, you trash, right? Yeah, of course, yeah. We don't want to do that. But I think if you're going to start making content, you need to understand that if you misrepresent what you are in trouble. Like, if you make a guide video and it isn't, you are not knowledgeable enough to make a guide, yeah, you're going to get roasted. And in a way, I think you kind of should, right? If I was watching a guide on how to solve a certain type of mathematics problem and it was wrong, I would be very unhappy, right? Okay, like what? Why are you making a guide if you don't understand, right? Like, if you don't know how it works,
for me.
Yeah. Like, come on, you're supposed to show me how to do it, and you're not doing that. And it's the same with Guild Wars 2. These videos are important. The game is hard. If people take bad advice and then take that into the game, they'll get frustrated, right? Because if they have, a bad build or a bad strategy or a bad this or a bad that, and they take that into the game, then yeah, they're actually going to have a hard time, right? And this is why it does really matter. I think content creators should be held to an extremely high standard, and they are very responsible for the content that they make. And again, I can use myself as an example. When I started making content, I did not make guide content because, again, I was not qualified to make said guide content. I made little meme videos and silly stuff, and we would talk about the game, right? I would do TeaTime, and we would just chat shit, right? With Inks and Brazil and Boots, and just talk about stuff, right? About what's happening, the news, right? The new maps, the story, right? Some of the balance of some of the design changes happening. Like, when raids came out, yeah, then I started getting into raids, and I got a lot better at the game. Right, so then I started making content like that, about raids, about the world's first stuff, about like different builds that you can play, Minstrel Chrono, Heal Scourge, right? But yeah, you need to understand your limits. You've got to understand like where you are in your journey through the game. You can detail that journey. I mean, if you watch my old content, yeah, you'll see me evolve as a player and change the way that I make content and what I was doing. If you watch old VODs, it's very different to what it was now when I have a lot of different proficiencies. You can document document your journey. But your first video, you can't just be going in like as a completely new player with no clue and make a guide video. That's not gonna happen. You should make videos and make content that you actually understand and know about, right? Otherwise, yeah, of course you're gonna have a bad time. And what you were talking about earlier, Brazil, about how like, oh yeah, you made maybe some like not super good videos with, not the best information back in the day. Well, this is because the environment is different. If you made that video now, yeah, you'd probably get memed really hard for it. Why? Because people have a lot more knowledge about the game, right? As a content creator, you're supposed to know more than the other guy, right? To be honest, and here's where it gets really interesting, actually. The build guide that you made, yeah, sure, maybe Soldier's Warrior was maybe not like the best thing in universe, like Soldier's Heal Warrior, but you know what? Because the information available in the game at the time and the community knowledge was so low, I guarantee you that was actually an upgrade, right? Were there a lot of things that were said about the game a long time ago that were probably not super correct? Yeah, absolutely. There are loads of things that probably weren't very accurate that were said about Guild Wars 2 back in the core game, back in Heart of Thorns. Yeah, of course. But the difference is that you have to be better than what's available as a content creator. If you aren't better than what's like the baseline level of knowledge, then what is the point of you? Okay.
Well, and there's different types too, because some people are just entertainers.
Exactly.
Their goal is to go in there and have fun.
Literally going to say that.
Yeah. Hey, you say it. I got to use the restroom, so I'll be right back.
Good luck.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And no, I kind of saw that one coming for sure, right? And you're absolutely right that you're an entertainer. But if you're an entertainer, then you're probably not then you're not in the same category that we're discussing here, right? If you're an entertainer, you don't need to be good at the game. And if it's labeled as such, then it's not a problem. In a way, this comes down to, the way you present things. This is part of that broader conversation of presentation and how all that stuff was. Oh, also, yeah, Sneb is me now, and I've turned into Micah. Look at that.
Nice shirt. He has a nice shirt, and he has on gym shorts. I love it.
Yeah. It's big. It is big content indeed. We love to see it. But yeah, no, I think it's all about presentation and the way you go about doing it. And I think content creators need to actually understand this and engage with this well. I think in Guild Wars 2, yeah, like we should be absolutely encouraging content creators who want to get on the scene to make good content, right? We should, look, we've even been talking about this recently, right, Brazil? Like, we want to help new creators and people who want to be community figures to do that, but we want to make them do it well, right? Because it's not going to be well received. We want to give good advice, good strategy, like good methodologies to approach this stuff. We don't want to do it just like completely haphazardly and randomly. It's just not going to work. And yeah, if we want to make the content creation scene better, definitely a bit of an interesting side topic here for sure. But if we want to make that better, then yeah, we need to instill in people the correct work ethic. I know it's easy for me to say that because, like, oh, look at me, I'm the Guild Wars 2 guy, oh yeah, it's TeaTime, right? It's easy for me to say that, but there was a long time when I wasn't. I was a complete nobody for an insane amount of time, right? In the Guild Wars 2 community. At the first TeaTime had what? Like 40 to 50 viewers, I think. And that was only because I got a little bit, I'd been grinding YouTube for a while, and look where we are now, right? Like, we're 10 times bigger, when we have like very spicy topics, we get even more viewers, all that kind of thing. Yeah, absolutely. With the way this stuff works out, it is difficult. It is a grind, but you need to put in the effort. And if you get burned for making a subpar piece of content, yeah, I mean, that is going to happen to you. But if you do your research and make a few mistakes, you're not going to get memed. What I guess I'm trying to say is that this effect, like a slightly bad video gets roasted. No, I don't think so. There are definitely some assholes in the community who are like very, very, very precise about what they want. But fuck them. Nobody cares about those guys. I mean, that can definitely be discouraging. We should try and prevent that from happening. But yeah, no, like, we want to see, like, let's get some actual content going. Like, we need more of this. We need some more content in the Guild Wars 2 community. But I think we should still make sure that we're encouraging people to go about it in the right way and not just kind of deflecting criticism because they're new. We should be giving criticism in a polite and constructive way, but we should absolutely not be allowing people to say things that are wrong. This is what kind of, in a way, breeds the animosity between the community and creators themselves. If the creators aren't good and aren't a positive influence on the game, then why on earth would the community care? This is particularly true in Guild Wars 2 because, as we talked about earlier, the content creation scene is pretty dry compared to the size of the game. There really aren't a lot of people, really pumping out a lot of content. So yeah, like, we should people should make good content. Make good content, and you won't get downvoted, and you won't get memed. There you go. How many other questions? Yes, but I'm saying, yes, be entertaining. Make good content, right? That's what I'm saying here. Realistically, okay, this is going to be a tough pill to swallow for all my content creator, brothers out there, brothers and sisters, okay? Listen, if you're getting roasted again and again and again, okay, maybe make your content better.
Ruthless.
That's true.
Well,
No mercy. No mercy, dude.
there it goes. The battery's dead.
Oh, no.
Can you still hear me? I think
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah,
it's just the camera.
Yeah.
Rip camera.
Elgato cam link. But
I've been having issues with the camera lately.
this has derailed my train of thought. Oh, it's back.
There we go. Sorry about that.
It's okay. I don't remember what I was going to say now, but I had a good thought. But yeah, I don't know. This is all interesting. I again, like, I'm a little charged on this too. I'm really charged on this. I don't think we should beat up little peepo content creators that want to make something new and want to do something. I don't think we should crucify them over it. But yeah,
I agree.
No, I think we probably agree. I think that, like, I want to be honest here. Like, Teapot, for people that, like, Teapot's put in a lot of work to get where he is, and he doesn't ever sleep. He never sleeps. He always does stuff. He probably has to put up with an inconceivable amount of idiocy, and he knows that he's accomplished these things, and he knows how much work he's put in, and he knows the amount of time that he's done it. And I guess you could think of it maybe like, you don't want people to, you want other people to understand what that's like. You want people, like, you don't want people to think they can make a Guild Wars 2 video with random information and just get to the top, I guess. Maybe I'm wrong, but there's...
Oh no, I just want people to have the right. I want people to have the right approach. I mean, if look, I don't want to say, hey, just kind of go and have a go and you'll be fine, because that isn't true, and we all know it isn't true, right? Like, it's not about I want people to suffer like through the grind that I've had. No, I actually don't want that, right? I really want to, like, network people. Again, this is a weird thing to say, right? But yeah, I love having people who have different ideas in the community on this podcast. It's why, one of the reasons why I want to get I want people to hear what he has to say, because it's interesting, right? It's an interesting thing. I always look for people who I think have interesting takes or interesting perspectives, even if it isn't quite right or quite there yet. Like, that's what excites me. Like, when I'm looking for someone who's got something a little bit interesting, a little bit special they can bring to the table, and then you can refine that. I agree. We should be able to look past imperfections and kind of see the potential in a creator, right? Rather than the objective thing that they have now. Think about what they could be. Yeah, absolutely. This is something I'm really passionate about. I mean, like, I even tried to do this a while ago. I'm here for round 2, but like, I'm very credible of this because I tried to do the thing with Delusional Elitist, which is now Hardstuck now, like ages ago. Yeah, I really want to get people into this stuff for sure. But in my opinion, you've got to get it right. Like, you've got to go in there with a strategy, like, and try and do it correctly. Otherwise, you aren't going to find success. I want to prevent people from having the negative experiences that you're describing, Brazil, right? Because it's inevitable. It's not that I think it's okay or that I am endorsing this type of behavior of, like, roasting, like, new people content creators. I want to give these new content creators the advice and the knowledge that they need to not have these experiences, because you're absolutely right. When people get roasted, I mean, we take a look at, like, say, Micah. Like, Micah's kind of new on the scene. Yeah, there are a lot of people who just completely check out after the response he's got. Absolutely, I agree. And maybe the same is true of you, Brazil. I'm sure you've had, well, I know you've had your share of interesting drama on YouTube and some, interesting responses from the community with some of the things you've said, right? And some of the things that we've done. Hey, look, we've definitely been there on TeaTime, right? For sure, over the years. Like, we've had our fun community responses and, had our battles, right? That we've fought there. And yeah, some people might, kind of like check out at that point. But in a way, that's what we're for. We're the old men, right? We're here to say, hey, watch out for that. Otherwise, that you might get a little bit burned by doing that. Be careful. Yeah, this is the point. It's not about saying, oh, you have to accept this behavior. It's, you need to understand how to avoid avoid getting into that scenario, right? Because, you know, it's not fun, is it? Like, when you're getting completely shot on, you're not having a good time with this kind of stuff. You want to show people a way to prevent these things from happening, because it can really screw you over. Like, if you get a bit of a bad rap in the community, it will take a long time to unravel it. It's what we were talking about earlier, you know? Like, if everyone says Sneb is toxic, then it's going to actually be really hard to disentangle Sneb from being toxic. Look, I've been there too. A lot of people used to think that I'm toxic. I think that's more or less gone away now, and certainly true as well for you, right, Brazil? But again, it's been unraveled at this point, but it takes time. But wouldn't it have been nice if we never had that? Because there are some things that also never go away, by the way. For example, you know, whenever I get posted, someone says something every single time. This happened to Wooden Potatoes, right, as well. Like, he had a bit of an incident, right, fairly recently with something that was said in game, and every single time he is brought up, that will be coming up again and again and again forever, right? It's very, very likely that there will always be a few people who think Sneb is toxic. That's never going to go away. And I know this is sounding overly serious for just kind of talking about a video game and making content about a video game, but I think it's really important that people understand, like, the ramifications of how this stuff actually works. I know that's super, super heavy, but I mean, I don't know, right? I think that we want people to not get burned. And in that case, you need to understand the rules, right? And you need to understand how it works. It doesn't matter if it's fair. It doesn't matter if it's right or if people should be a little bit nicer. This is the way the system currently operates. And we should obviously try and push for change, but we should still be pragmatic, right? We should still try to play within this system and help people operate within it, right? That's my take on this.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
Do we understand each other a little bit better, Brazil? Because I think we talk about each other a bit, right? You know, I think we didn't quite understand each other.
Yeah, you're probably right, and I agree, because when I was starting out, like, I spent a lot of nights being up late looking at YouTube, like trying to dig through Google and like fucking YouTube and figure out how to do some shit. Or I was having a problem with this tool and I didn't know what was wrong and I wanted to. But yeah, I agree. And that's something that I want to help you with also with Hardstuck. I want to be able to contribute this knowledge pool that I've gained about, you know, practical stuff like editing videos, presenting yourself. I'm a real absolute god when it comes to presenting what you have to say. There's no doubt about that. I haven't been an asshole once this podcast. But I agree, because it was difficult. The road was long. The road was very scary. There was a lot of uncertainties, and it was rough, and it sucked. And being able to help other people not have to deal with that, I think it's a good thing. That's something that I would like to do. I would like them to understand and respect the work that it takes to put on it, because I can tell you how to do everything you want to do, but if you don't do it, then you're not ever going to make anything. And so but there's an amount of work that is unnecessary to do if the resource is there to help you skip it. And I guess, there's no need to suffer through years and years of trying to figure shit out. Like this person that I've been talking to the other day about PvP stuff. Like, I saw this individual who is really into the PvP scene. He makes build videos. There was a fun video he posted about a Spite Reaper build, and he said, "This is a fun build. This isn't a competitive build, but go ahead and leave a comment showing me that you didn't read it that says the build is bad." And like, lol, his build he makes, anyways. Like, that's a creator. I watch some of his stuff. I want him on board. I want to be able to help him. I want to help him with his goal in shoutcasting and doing stuff on NA PvP. I think we have resources that can help him learn to be a better shoutcaster. I think we can get some stuff organized. I think we could do this. And PvP is in a really bad spot right now. And I think we need some fucking help getting that sorted out and fixed. And if we can have someone who is hyped up and pumped up, and they're already doing it themselves anyways, they're already shoutcasting, they're already making guides, they're already streaming, they're already doing this stuff. Wow, what an asset they can be if we get people behind them and we get stuff going. Holy shit, that could be awesome. And I don't know. There got to be other people like that out there. Like if you want to be a content creator, if you know a lot about the game, you want to do all this stuff, like reach out to us, get in contact with us. We're right here. Find our Twitters everywhere. Like there are going to be plugs at the end of the TeaTime. Like you can get in contact with us. We're not impossible to reach. We'd love to help you if that's what your goal is.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Like this is the solution. You want to have like the community of the community. You want to have this meta community where people are collaborating a lot more. This is something that I don't know. I've always tried to get this going, but it's really hard to do. It's really difficult. Like this is something that I need to work on a lot more. But yeah, more collaboration, having content goes be on each other's streams, right? Like be in each other's YouTube videos there as well. Like this type of community that you want to build up is absolutely essential. This means that you can for example, let's go to the build example because I think this is really, really good. Let's suppose that someone wants to make a build guide. Right? Well, okay, so they make the build guide, but before they put it on YouTube, they could like run it past us, right? Because oh yes, we are the best players in the entire game, but we know people who are very good. Let's talk about Rev. Like Souls is a streamer who is an expert Revenant player, like Renegade, Herald, all this stuff. Well, we could talk about that. Right, he could go in and look at it and say, hey, that's not quite right. You might want to change that. And all of a sudden, you have this ability to generate feedback within this community and make sure that these kind of things don't happen. People working together is what we need to see a lot more of, right? And everyone wins, everyone benefits. This is something that I do try to consistently get out there, but it's really difficult to get people to engage in this stuff. I think partially, what's really interesting here, actually? I think a lot of people who make content for YouTube and Twitch, they actually don't even necessarily care about getting loads of clout. And that's actually a problem. Like, if you've got a bunch of hungry people, then they will absolutely get on board with the networking to like ride the clout train. But a lot of people in the Guild Wars 2 community actually probably don't care about clout. This is not a game that you get into for the fat clout, right? And this kind of means that people don't really kind of care to like really push hard and like aggressively push themselves and kind of get out there like for all the views, like all the clicks, all the memes, right? That kind of stuff. And this is like that we almost need to instill. I've got to turn everyone here in the Guild Wars 2 content creation scene into like a clout demon, that's what we need to do. To actually get people engaged enough to really care about the stuff they make, right? And want to make a big difference and make a big impact. It's interesting to think about, actually. But I think we just need people working together a lot more and to have this much more collaborative platform because everyone wins. If everyone works together, you're going to get more viewers. Everyone gets more viewers. You're going to increase the total amount of viewers as well because you can grow the scene by doing this. But everyone, it tends to be kind of out on their own, which, we're going full circle here, right? This also tends to bring this very disjointed, disconnected community where, again, Sneb brought this up, right? There are people who only watch Xtreme. They're only in that Discord. They're only here. They're only there, right? But look at streams that are popular, right? I'm not talking about, Guild Wars 2 popular. I'm talking about popular. All the YouTubers, they're on each other's channels, right? Like there are like big clusters of YouTubers who everyone knows each other, right? And in Twitch, look at all the way streamers interact. All the big streamers know each other. They're always on Discord. They're always posting each other's content. They're always reacting to each other's content even, right? All this kind of stuff. It's like a giant human centipede over there, guys. Seriously, unbelievable. Okay, except they're all shitting gold. And when I say gold, I mean YouTube ad revenue. But yeah, like this is how it needs to be. I know it's weird to think about it in such cold and almost business-like terms. But like I said, if you want to play the game, you got to play the game, right?
Yeah, you have to be. Well, I don't know.
I want to bring Sneb in. I feel like Sneb. He wants to get in the mix. He wants to juice up. He wants to. Yeah,
juice I was about to go down a hole that we probably don't need to go down. But Sneb, go ahead.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I'm not really sure exactly what to say about that. I mean, I think everybody does. You mentioned being hungry, right? I mean, when I started streaming. The reason I started streaming is I was bored to death because the pandemic was on and I was somebody who was usually out in the community doing stuff, going to like events and whatever. And I really enjoyed that. And that was taken away from me. But I did love Guild Wars 2. Like I still had this whole collection. It's not like I just bought it because I started streaming, right? I was passionate about that, but I'd never really gotten involved in the community. And I thought, oh, like what if I were to, hold on.
Dog.
He wants to be held. He wants to be held. What if I were to, you know, just stream my Drakkar runs for fun, right? What if I was just to do that? Like, so I just turned on the stream one day. Horrible audio quality. Didn't know how to do any of the settings. Didn't know anything. I just thought I'll just hit the go live button and see what happens. And not a lot of people watched at the beginning. And then somehow, some way, in like a week, I had like 5 people watching. And then over the course of the next couple of months, it went from 0 to 30. And I thought that was so cool. I just started streaming because it was fun, right? I was never like super hungry for anything, or I didn't have like some massive goal, right? Goals only became a thing after things just kind of fell and happened. It's okay. Like, I think everybody does content creation for a different reason, though. I do think like if we really want the Guild Wars 2 community to become more popular, you do need a bit of hunger, right? And that's why I'm a busy guy, right? I have a full-time job, and I've got a kid and a wife and this dog. And so I don't have the most time in the world to be able to dedicate to content creation. I just do it because it's my small way of giving back. And I think that's pretty cool. And making statics is another way that I can try to create more awareness for the raid community. I suppose what I'm saying is that not everyone has to be super, super hungry to make a difference. Even if people just came in and they're like, hey, this is the one little thing that I can do, maybe I'm just a little hungry to help, then collectively, that's a big deal.
I agree. You know, you don't really have to have a balance, right? Like you don't want to have people who are just in it, just in it for the internet clout. I stream Guild Wars too. Guys, I do it for the money. There it is. Drop that. That's getting clipped now. I admit it. Yeah, there it is. Subscribe now. Tier 3. Let's go. Of course not. But yeah, you have to, like, you know, you've got to want more, right? You've got to want to have an impact and want to change things, right? That is really key, I think, in the in the content creation pipeline. You got to be onto it, right? You really want to make something done. But I think that's a pretty good place to wrap up. I think we've got a little bit off piece, a little bit off topic towards the end, right? Like of the show here. But you know what? I like it. Okay, I love to see that. I really do indeed. But I think it's time to just about wrap things up. In that case, we're going to do a brief introduction for our wonderful guests, and thank you all for watching this slightly unusual episode of Tea Time. But I do like to vary it up, bring some content. Love to see it, guys. But yeah. In that case, I will give, I'll actually just kind of open the floor up to Micah. If you have any last words, maybe not, maybe slightly poor wording. Maybe you have final thoughts, final ideas that you want to share here before giving us a bit of an introduction. Like, tell us about yourself, like where we can find you on YouTube, Twitch, Twitter, all that kind of stuff. Give us the details. What is in store for us on your channel? And of course, any final thoughts that you might have on the discussion.
Sure. Well, first off, thanks for having me, man. I appreciate you reaching out and getting me the invite. When I saw you'd contacted me, I was like, oh no. I wasn't sure. I hoped it was good, but I thought, oh no, like what does he want? But then when you sort of expressed of like, hey, I want to have you on, let's talk about this. I think this is important, and just because, people who are maybe watching on the stream who don't know or whatever, I can absolutely vouch for Teapot's character. Like, a lot of people might wonder, like, well, what are they like behind the curtain, behind the closed doors? Teapot's been super nice, super respectful the whole way through. And so, yeah, I just, not to kiss butt or anything like that, but hey, I appreciate you. It's good to be on. It's good to have a conversation. Snebs and Preston, I enjoyed talking with y'all. I got to talk with Preston a little bit beforehand, which was enjoyable as well. So I just appreciate being here. As far as my channel's concerned, I'm trying to run an MMO channel. I like looking at MMOs, and I like sort of calling out good design or bad design, trying to find out like what was the thought process that went into this game, what were they going for, did they miss the mark, did they hit it? So that's sort of what the channel's about, and I definitely have a lot of Guild Wars 2 content planned. If you saw the video of me sort of calling out the toxic community, just know that for the record, I feel like I did a terrible job of communicating that. And I do have another video coming out soon to sort of clarify what it was that I was attempting to say and what it is that I actually believe. So I think I did a poor job of representing my own stance, which sucks. But, and I didn't want to, I offended a lot of people that I did not intend to offend. So there'll be that. That's just on my YouTube. Mighty Micah. You know, if you want to follow, go for it. But yeah, thanks again for having me, and it's been fun.
Yep. Thank you very much indeed. Okay, let's go over the first time we have ever had a reveal of this. Some people have a face reveal. Sneb has a forehead reveal.
I thought you were going to say the dog.
And dog reveal. Please. Sneb, tell us. Okay? Tell us what you're up to these days in the NA raid scene. How long until you're totally mentally broken?
You know, it fluctuates. There's good days and there's bad days. But hey, we have 10 statics in the Skane gang, and I'm pretty proud of that. I'm really proud of the community. I think that the folks that we have that want to learn how to raid and that are getting into the game, they ask questions. And I mean, you can ask Isa about this. Isa's been answering lots of questions and helping out in some of the statics when they need fills and stuff. And people want to learn. They're just kind of afraid to ask in some environments, right? So I'm really excited with that. If you're on NA and you want to learn how to raid and you want to get into a static, hit me up. Let's do it. That you can find me on Twitter, twitter.com/Snebzor, and of course on Twitch. So that's me.
Very nice indeed. Fantastic stuff. Make sure to check out all these links. I'm just spamming the host command away here as well. Take a look at that. And finally, we have the next unlikely savior of NA, bringing dungeons back. It's Preston, aka Brazil.
UWV_Brazil. That's me.
Boom.
Yeah, so I've done Guild Wars 2 stuff for a really long time. I don't know. I don't ever sleep, and I make really bad points sometimes on TeaTime. And sometimes I get really mad at 1UP and yell at him whenever I say we shouldn't be toxic, and then I immediately turn toxic. So, you know, it is sorry about that, everyone. That was a little wild. That's been on my mind the whole time. But yeah, I'm a photographer. I do a lot of shit. If you are interested in seeing tweets about Rumpo sending me literally 16 bunny ears from the gym store.
Ooh.
He sent me 16 bunny ears. If you want to see tweets about that and screenshots of Rumpo exposing himself being an Ayaya fanboy, you can go to twitter.com/UWV_Preston. If you want to watch me stream Dungeons, which is content that literally no one cares about, just kidding. Dungeons are surprisingly alive. Dungeons are actually very alive. It's been very surprising. Twitch.tv/UWV_Preston and YouTube as well. If you've been struggling with Big Nose Ted and you need some help with the personal story, I'm on YouTube also, and Instagram if you want to see my pictures. Underworldvideo.com will get you to all of that, hopefully. And you can also see my photography projects, my art, and stuff that I make. So that's me.
Awesome stuff. Be sure to check that out. Of course, there'll be links to all of these fantastic guests in the YouTube video and also below the stream as well if you happen to be here too. Enjoy that, and in the Twitch chat using the !hosts command. So thank you guys so much for watching. Really hope you appreciate it. Of course, if you like this TeaTime, you like this type of discussion, well, I got good news for you. We're going to have some of these, like Sneb said, okay, we're bringing the content. We are the content, right, for the next 2 months or so. So buckle up and enjoy. You can follow this stream. Okay, you can subscribe to this stream. You can follow all my social media, okay, there as well with this command there. You can follow me on Twitter. You can follow everyone here on Twitter. I mean, you could do that if you wanted to. Watch all the videos, subscribe, okay, come back and watch every day. Go watch all the other TeaTimes. There's got to be a playlist of what, like 250 TeaTimes, maybe even more than that at this point. You can go and check those out. But until then, it is time for us to depart. I'm going to continue streaming an after show here as well in just a few moments, but we're going to take a very brief break here before we get back to the actual stream as well. So once again, thank you so much for watching. We really appreciate it. Like I said, be sure to check out all these credits. Thank you very much to my guests, especially to Micah here for kind of joining a little bit of the, a bit of the Shark Tank here, right? Okay, being thrown to the wolves of TeaTime. It's certainly an experience for the for the first time around, but I appreciate the chat as well for being, being very, very positive. I think we had a good and important discussion here, right? And I hope that we can actually continue discussing these ideas and push it a little bit, because I do genuinely think it's extremely important. Right? This is an issue that we should try and confront, not just in Guild Wars 2, but every other game as well. But that is going to wrap things up. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. We really hope you have enjoyed it, and we will see you all next time. Good night, my friends. Well, I'll see you in a little bit anyway, but you know what? We'll see you in like 15 minutes or so. Cheers, guys. Thanks for watching.